Oops. There we go. That's better. Hey, everybody. How you doing? Welcome to today's episode. We'll see how this all goes. I've got some interesting, different stuff for today. So let's just kind of started a little bit early today. Figured I'd give everybody a little bit of time to get in here and get settled in, and we can see where we're going on, or what's going on, I should say. First off, I want to apologize a little bit if you see me wince every once in a while. It's because my shoulder's messed up again. So I'll be doing a lot of cross reaching for my drinks today. Anyway, let's see. Howdy, Angie, Brennan, Proud, Braddy, Gail, Gemma. Gotta be Gemma. Never heard Gemma. I don't know why I said that. Just because, well, that's me. We have some fun things today. I hope that everybody's ready for some out of this world things, because I have compiled some very interesting things other than just Antarctica. We just happen to get Antarctica as part of it. Oh yeah, that flag's not going anywhere. We'll see if Space Force Spiff comes in. He's the one who actually makes those. If you're on Twitter, make sure that you follow up with him, and if you like the flag, buy one from him. They're absolutely gorgeous. He undercharges for them. I would have gladly paid more than I did for it. The workmanship is incredible. So they're very, very nice. Hi, Rodania, Tammy, Giapet, Giapet, love it. Joanne, Wendy, Callie. Oh, welcome from Australia. Good to see my Aussie friends checking in. I had not heard that serendipity, so stuff like that I tend to give at least a couple hour rule. There's a lot of false flags and a lot of false information going on right now that are really they're trying to get everybody worked up. So best thing to do is just kind of stand back, relax, be very skeptical. Welcome, Rabbit Leader. There's my UK contingent checking in. Howdy, Paula. So anyway, on serendipity, go ahead and just I know it's easy to say and hard to do sometimes, but just take a couple deep breaths. Don't worry about it. I think we'll find out that it's not what it sounds like. And if it is, we're just going to have to trust that the people there are prepped for it. So, hey, Northlake. Hey, Chris. Hey, James. Wow, got a lot of people in the chat today. Hey, Germany. All right. Nice to see you guys. Thank you, Health. Proud actually based there. I don't want to say that there is, but based on what I'm seeing, there is potentially a second strain of COVID of some sort that's out there. There's definitely something out there that's not fitting the COVID, that's a lot more unfriendly to the human body. I've got I was doing a kind of a survey of nurses a couple weeks ago, and there's something out there in a couple states that's concerning. Don't want to really make a big deal out of it until we know a little bit more about it, but I guess the bottom line on this is do not get this year's flu shot, whatever you do, and definitely don't get the COVID vax until we know a lot more about it. So, all right, we're up over 50. Hey, everybody else I see in there. I've got a bunch of names in here that new names, new faces. Thank you guys for coming in. Appreciate you guys being here. And let's kind of roll with this for now. First thing we're going to do is we're going to dive off, and bear with me here. I got to get things set up a little differently. All right, there we go. Hey, quiet no more. Joel, good to have you. Carrie, too, I hope you're there. Everybody, quiet no more is the old quiet voice. They got their account pulled from them here on YouTube. So please give them a follow here on YouTube. They are the folks that gave me my start on YouTube and some of the best people you'll ever meet. True patriots, and been through a real rough month. So, prayers for them. But everything looks to be doing better. So, Joel, good to have you here, my friend. Okay, so let's get into the exciting thing here. Let me bring it up so I can proper strangeness. Okay. What we have here in front of us is something that's a little different. Now, I don't know how many of you are aware of the remote viewing programs that MK Ultra and the CIA and such were involved with. But what we have here is we have a unclassified CIA document, proof release 288, August 8th of 2000. So this is not new. Okay. And Mars exploration that happened on a remote view on May 22nd of 1984. Okay. Now, I got turned on to this by somebody who's actually involved in the remote viewing program. I'm not going to say any more about it because I don't want to get them. I don't want to dox them, basically. So, but this is very interesting in that it gives me the coordinates of where they sent this person. Okay. Now, they were looking at a million years BC. So this is way back in time. This is not current. Okay. But if we go down, we can see that they are giving us the coordinates 40.89 degrees north, 9.55 degrees west. And you can read through this. And what I'll do is I'll find a way to get this linked so that you guys can find it and read through it. It's kind of interesting. It's a little dry, but it's kind of interesting. But here's the fun part. Dano, being Dano, couldn't leave well enough alone. He found a way to map it. And not only did I map it, I mapped it on Mars. Yay. So what I find very, very interesting is that we have all these spots on Mars. Now, Google Earth Pro allows you to have Mars and Venus, and I believe the moon. The Earth, Mars, and moon in the sky. So just those ones that we can use. But what I find very, very interesting is the first coordinate given, and what you'll recognize here very soon is where this was. The first coordinate given was not far from a fairly talked about feature on Mars. It was only 5 miles away. And this feature was the face on Mars. Now, you can't see here. Let me turn around so that you can see it a little bit better. This was the orientation of it. Now, obviously, in the higher res photos, you can see where it doesn't have that facial feature. But if I click over this, Cydonia, you can see here where this is the mask that we all were looking at going, oh my God, they got a human face on Mars. Why is it that the very first remote viewing coordinate that was given to this task was within 5 miles of that spot? I don't have an answer, but there are no coincidences, I mean, in both these events, this was all back in the 80s. So, and this was the thing about that you may not realize about remote viewing is it's not time sensitive, meaning you can go back in time to remote view in the past. You can go forward in the future to some degree as well, but the past can be done. So they set the time frame, the coordinate, as being a billion years or a million years BC. Was it a million or a billion? I gotta look. 1 million years BC, right there. Okay. So they sent them back a million years in time to remote view this at that time frame. Now, remote viewing is not like you just sit there and you get a picture. It's senses, it's vague feelings, it's nothing really specific. You kind of form vague pictures. And if you read this CIA doc that I'll drop the info on, and I'll find a way to get it to you guys, is that you can really see how they describe things. It's not really, I mean, here you go. I want to say it looks like, I don't know, it sort of looks, I got kind of an oblique view of a pyramid form. It's very high, sitting in a large depressed area. Okay, vague feelings, vague notions, kind of descriptions, not specific things, but kind of open and I don't want to use the word vague, but it is. So, and sudden mon is monitor and subject, just so you know, subject being the person who's doing the viewing, monitor being the person that's there to monitor them. In a remote viewing situation, you always have a monitor to bring you back. It's not, some people can come back on their own, but very few people can. So anyway, so the first stop was here, Cydonia in the face of Mars. I mean, within a couple miles of it. And obviously you're going to be able to see something at large from there. And that's why that person is getting that feel for what's going on there. I mean, there's quite obviously no pyramidal shape here. I mean, what size objects are we getting down to here? Let's see what kind of resolution we see here. Okay, that's about a 900 foot across thing there. That's 500 feet. This ridge is probably 200 feet. So we don't have really, really good, high res of this area, but high enough that we'd see a pyramid of any size, any sort of structure. So we can pretty much rule out that there's not a pyramid there. He's looking in the distance and seeing that thing. And from there, it would appear pyramidal because it's got a peak and stuff. So then they go on to the second coordinates, which are actually fairly close here. They head a little bit south. And let me flip this around so north is correct here. Actually, we're north. I'm sorry. I have myself upside down. And they were just looking for different areas. I don't know what they found or didn't find. They may have very well been looking for suitable places to set down the Mars rovers and stuff. It's all part of that grouping. So the first three coordinates are all here within the northern hemisphere. Not sure I would call that west or east hemisphere. But let's scroll on over here and straighten the world back up. Now, what we have here, you got coordinate 5 and 6 here. Now, I mean, this is a pretty good distance. I mean, we're talking 4 million feet. Hang on, let me get to miles. 768 miles away. Now, what this is this is Olympus Mons. Olympus Mons is the largest volcano in the solar system. It is over 10 miles tall. To give you a scale, Mount Everest is only about 6 miles tall, just a little over 6. So this is a huge volcano. And as you can see from the flow patterns, it's monstrous as far as its reach too. I mean, we're talking, 800 miles wide. There's nothing on planet Earth that comes close to it. Well, I take that back. Hawaii, the island of Hawaii would, but it's that's underwater, so you can't see much of it. You can only see this much of it. So that's a very interesting area. I mean, it's a very noticeable, very well known. I mean, you can see this with a good telescope from your own background or your own backyard. I've looked at it myself. It's quite impressive, and it's mind blowing once you understand how big it really is. So the next 3 coordinates were just basically on the edge of it, which I find, again, very interesting. I kind of wish I knew specifically where the rovers had sat down. I may go looking for that information and plot those out so we know approximately where the rovers were, because this looks like a pretty good area to plant the rovers. Looks like it's pretty smooth, pretty easy. So, 4, 5, and 6. Now, interestingly enough, they moved coordinate 7 out here. Out kind of in the middle of nowhere. And again, we don't have real good high. Oh, yeah, we do. That's some pretty decent high res stuff. So, I mean, that's not that big. That's maybe 100 feet. Yep, 140 feet. So, I mean, it's not huge, but again, they're not, what were they looking for? Now, there's some interesting features here that, you can see if you look. But again, it's hard to say. Impact craters everywhere, which just, proves lack of atmosphere. Because in an atmospheric situation, those would, these smaller ones would all have burned up like they do on planet Earth. This one here, to give you guys a sense of scale, that one's about the size of the impact crater in Arizona. So to give you a feel for scale. Then you notice how some of these are filled in. Like this is an old impact crater, but it's filled in. Well, at one point there was very obviously wind and stuff. And it takes wind to, an atmosphere to create wind. So, I mean, Mars has somewhat of an atmosphere. Oh, that's why that looks that way. Okay. Sunlight coming in. 2 different sets of pictures. One time the sun was shining this way, one time the sun was shining this way. So we got a bright, shiny crater. Oh, it's a telescope. No. We're above that kind of stuff. So anyway, just some interesting stuff. I don't really have any conclusions, just some neat things. It's not enough to occupy its own show, but it's certainly fun to put, 15, 20 minutes worth of effort into it. Later on, how about all my Antarctica points plotted on Mars? That's funny. Actually, something? I'm curious. Oh, there was an 8th coordinate. I forgot about that. It's down at the very South Pole. Now, if you get close enough here, you can see where this looks like ice. Let's see, do they have... Yeah, frost. So there's a lot of things that are interesting about Mars. The fact that they find water is pretty telling. I think I'm going to leave those coordinates on when I go back to Earth because I want to see what they line up with on Earth. I don't know that it means anything, but sometimes it's kind of fun to see what it does. Just as a quick or not so quick aside. Watch, I'll crash it. I've got enough info on here that I crash this thing every once in a while. I'm pushing its limits. Oh, it's not. Oh, there we go. Okay, so those coordinates are all out in the water. Those coordinates are all out in the water. And then that one is going to be right there. Just what a nice segue right into Antarctica. I couldn't have asked for a better segue if I had tried. All right, so let's turn those off. Don't need those. Let's turn on Antarctica. Now, the thing everybody's here for is obviously Antarctica. And what we have here is a lot of information. As you can see, that there's been a lot of work done by me on Antarctica. Everything that you see on that screen in front of you is a point that I have plotted on Google Earth. Let me back up and give you a little backstory. I've always been kind of interested in Antarctica just because it's an interesting remote place. But a couple of years ago, there was that Strava heat map deal that came out, and everybody got all excited about, hidden bases and stuff like that. Well, I started doing a little digging into it, and I didn't find any hidden bases. I found the Strava heat map lined up exactly with known bases that were down there. But it took me a while to get there because I could find no map of Antarctica that showed everything. You might get a few bases or all the American bases or all the Japanese bases or something like that, but I couldn't find anything that was complete, had all the bases, all the runways, all the skiways, all the points of interest, everything. And so I decided, you know what, screw it, I'm going to do it myself. And I did. And basically every one of these I've actually verified myself by checking that each one of these is on a spot. Let's look at let's just take and zoom in here on Kunlun, which is a Kunlun station for China. Summer only is blue, if I remember right. Yeah, that's a summer only base, which makes sense since it's on the interior of the continent. And then there's a Kunlun skiway. Well, if we zoom in close enough, boom, right there. You can very obviously see that this is a base of some sort. So, and you do a little work, you can kind of see where the skiway is. They're usually fairly obvious. They don't place them too far away usually. Oh, there it would be right there. And again, there's people that make a big deal about seeing stuff like this out in the Antarctic. Well, it's nothing. These are machinery that they leave in place to help maintain the runway and also allow pilots to see something better than just a cone. I mean, there's no electricity out there except for what they're doing, so it's not like they got marker lights. So they use honest to God visuals, and what better visual than having stuff, these are most likely vehicles or something that are partially buried in the snow, and they just leave them there for the winter and dig them out when they come during the summer and reutilize them. So, I mean, there's plenty of strangeness in Antarctica without us having to go and try to make up and find stuff. We don't need to make this into something it's not. Believe me, there's a lot of strange that I can find that is not explainable. All this stuff is very readily explainable. So, I mean, that's in the interior, that's there. So all the blue, dark blue are what's known as summer only camps, meaning they're only based and utilized during the summer. All the red is year-round camps. They're full-time staffed, fully used. Admonson is only, there's another one, Vostok, which is obviously for Lake Vostok. Are two of the ones that are internal. Concordia here for France and Italy. Those are the only three interior ones that are staffed full year round. All the rest of the interior ones are part-time. All the greens are like skiways and runways. Differences. Howdy to everybody new in chat. Thank you for joining. I'm kind of flying solo today, so I'm going to have to, if you guys have a question, if I miss it, I'm sorry. I'm not going to be able to focus on the chat fully 100% of the time today. So anyway, the skiways and runways are basically, skiways are, well, I would hope it's self-explanatory, only accessible by planes with skis. So smaller planes. I believe like a DC-7, DC-4 size plane, maybe a C-130 is about the biggest plane that they can get in there. Now, the non-skiways, and let's see here. I'll put wheel on those when they have them. You can see one over here. And there's some big ones over here as well. There's definitely a couple big ones down here, down by McMurdo. Those are what are known as blue ice runways. There's a couple dirt runways out over in the peninsula over here, out at the end. But for the most part, any of the wheeled stuff is going to be blue ice. Now, what blue ice is solid ice. The runway is ice, and there's that. So I'm trying to give you guys all this background on it because this all does play in later as we look at stuff. So let me remove the runways and skiways because that's a lot of stuff that, you know, it's kind of distracting. Now, the pink stuff is different, like mountains and points of interest, like Hillary Scott's Hut, Mount Elizabeth, Patriot Hills, Vincent Massif, which happens to be the tallest point in Australia. Wow, Antarctica. Sorry, guys. So the pinks are just genuine points of interest. So we'll take those off, and we'll take the bases out too. There's the summer base is gone, and then the year-round base is gone. Now, light blue is where we get some interesting stuff. This is where we are going into the anomalies, the different pyramids that I've found down there. I've found 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I think there's actually a couple more that we're not seeing here. So there's at least 8, probably as many as 12 pyramids that I've identified down in Antarctica. Now, let me step back for a second and clarify that a little bit. When I use the term pyramid, I'm being very generous in some of these cases. Some of these are pyramid in name only and from one direction when you're standing on your left foot with your right eye closed and dancing in a pirouette with your left arm on your top of your head. Some of these aren't pyramidal at all. They're just named that because from a certain direction they happen to have a pointy peak. So we can't really say that there's 12 pyramids down here. There are some very distinct pyramid shapes and places down here, and we will get to those. There's at least 3 or 4 of them. So not all are real, not all are, some are definitely natural. Some are questionable. I'm not going to say they're not natural, but they're questionable enough that you don't see those kinds of shapes in nature naturally, except for possibly here. But I have a hard time buying that because we would see it in the Alps or in the Cascades or the Rockies or any other place that had been heavily glaciated at one point, and we just don't see these kind of perfect structures. And some of them are pretty drastic. They're pretty dramatic. Anyway, and then there's other things like the Blood Falls and the Snow Face and the Mystery Submarines, and something I found there's a straight line in Seagull Depression, and there's the 65-foot disc, which is not a disc. It's a kind of a semicircular melt pool that happens to look exceptionally semicircular from the angle that the photo was taken. But we'll look at that. Funny thing is I did an anomaly thread showing all this stuff, and not 3 days later, somebody did a big YouTube video talking about a mystery, flying saucer found down under, and there it is. It's like, really, guys? Anyway, Rothschild Island is on this list. We will talk about that. That's sure to ring a lot of alarm bells. Hey, Italy in the house. Welcome, Italy. Welcome everybody else as well. We got a lot of people in here in chat today. A lot of people watching. I do appreciate everybody. Please make sure that you do the subscribe and alerts and like. It does help me. It helps me to know what you guys like too. I mean, who doesn't like Antarctica? So we'll take away the anomalies. And then we got this nice bright yellow thing here. And this is my version, and I'll show you where I got it from, of what the Nazis found. And this is New Schwabenland. Okay. And I've covered this before. But regrettably, we covered this heavily on Quiet Voices video, but that's no more because they got their channel nuked. So we're going to cover it again here, and we'll have it backed up this time. I don't know if you guys had stuff backed up or not, but hopefully you did. I was trying to, but I hadn't gotten to it. And then when I was doing it, I was like, oh no, they're gone. Ah! Anyway, so Svarthamaren, excuse me, is a supposed entrance to the Nazi base that was found down there. I've got documents on that and everything, so that's how I was able to find it, because I knew it was in this Mühlig-Hoffmann mountain range, which if I mouse over that is that whole range. And then based on descriptions and stuff, I narrowed it down to here. Now, what's interesting is that if we check this one, there happens to be a summer-only Norwegian base right there, which is kind of interesting. So, okay, so now that you know what I have looked at and where I've gotten my information for Antarctica as far as the mapping and such, let's take a little bit of a look at my threads. And you're going to have to pardon me because I was bad and didn't pre-prep this. So I'm going to have to take a second here and prep this part of the show because I'm a terrible host and didn't get this pre-done. So I got to go find my threads. There's one. Okay. There's the very first one, actually. So we're going to kind of basically go through each one of my Antarctica threads. And there's a little bit of duplication in there, but not a whole lot. I think it's going to be informative and educational for everybody. There's the anomaly thread. And then the final one. Oops. Bear with me here. This is going to be all the way down. They always bury the most popular thread at the bottom of the feed. I don't have any control where it shows up in my feed. They just do it that way. Okay, so we're going to drag this whole thing over here. We're going to minimize this, maximize this, and let's see here. So basically, this is just the mapping thread. So the mapping thread is basically just covering what we just covered. In fact, there's more information in what I just gave you than's in the mapping thread, but we'll look at it real fast. Thanks, Rabbit. Appreciate you reminding everybody of that. And yes, I am flying solo today, except for my help from the moderators in the chat. So if we one of those guys can get a hold of me if we got something we need to cover, but I'm going to try to get through this. There's 4 threads worth of information here, so I don't want this to turn into a 5-hour show, even though there's some people that like it when I do that. So this is actually when I had just finished the mapping. So there's not any of the anomalies, nothing on there, none of the pyramids. Well, there is some of them, but I had them mixed in with the points of interest at that time. So do not pay attention to this KMZ file. At the end of each one of my 4 Antarctic threads, I now have a link to a link I will keep updated that has all of my shareable KMZ files. It's just a way to do it that's a lot easier than trying to update every thread that I've got a KMZ file in. So I'm pointing everything to this one point, and then I will update that one point when things change. I haven't made any changes in the past little while. So one of the things I found here is this, I call it a 10.6 mile line in Seagull Depression. It was that Kunlun station I found, I pointed out, is the closest thing to it. It was something like 50 miles away or something like that. It's not close. But this line runs in this is a 10.6 mile line. And then you've got this, I call this a Seagull Depression because it kind of looks like a seagull against the sunset. Is it an artifact? Possibly. This line. It seems awful perfect. And when you zoom in and on Google Earth, it doesn't change much. It looks like it could be just a fence, but in the middle of nowhere, who knows? It's one of those things I'm just going to call an oddity and leave it at that. I did find in the middle of this Russian station, and it's kind of hard to see here. I won't be able to zoom in on here. Oh, there it is, zoomed in a little bit. Now, this could just be a meltwater pool, and we're just, we're looking at it at enough of an angle that it looks like it could be something. But this opening right here looks fairly circular. Just something odd, something to point out. It could very well just be meltwater. I mean, if you kind of unfocus your eyes a little bit, you can see where it then kind of turns into something else. I just see the pattern of the circle here, and that's what catches my eye. Again, that's a take it or leave it. You can go both ways on that one. Nothing definitive. Here's where, now this is the map that I utilized to make my new Schwabenland area. This is actually one of the original Nazi mappings of the area. I've got a couple of different versions of this, but this is the cleanest, best one. So, and you can see right here that Mulek Hoffman is right here. And then based on where they place these flags, see, they place these markers. They flew over and dropped flag markers all over the place. And you can tell, I translated this, and this was airdropped flag, and this was planted flag, and ship's position as well, ship's position, which you can see where they had the ships out here in the harbor. And then these 3 flags were actually where they got on land and planted it by hand. So these were all dropped by plane. So they were busy exploring by air, and anywhere they saw something interesting or a spot they wanted to mark, they dropped a flag. Well, this area in here is basically where I tagged that Svartmaren 211, base 211 was, just based on this and other descriptions that I have of it. So working from real info. And then, here's my, which we already saw, and then all the different bases that are in and around that area. There's something interesting about this. If you look at the names and the countries, Belgium, Russia, Norway, Germany, Sweden, Germany, Sweden. Obviously, India doesn't really fit, although it may. I mean, this is a pretty big grouping of blonde hair, blue eyed folk, all in Nazi German land. I don't think that was planned that way, but it just kind of coincidental. And here I zoomed in on that Svarthmaren entrance here. And you can see that there a little bit better. And this is the updated. And then this is that link I was talking about where I would link directly to the deal. So let's go to the anomaly one. Let's just get those out of the way. We'll save the good stuff for last. I shouldn't have done that. Wrong arm. Anyway, so these are all the anomalies that I have, including pyramids and stuff. And I did at that time ask out for help looking for real anomalies. I don't want Photoshop stuff. I don't want stuff that you can easily prove as being fake. I mean, you know, I've said it before and I'll say it again. There's enough real odd stuff in Antarctica. We don't need to make stuff up to, you know, show that there's strange stuff down there. I mean, there's plenty of strange stuff down there. And I pretty much say that right here. And I had started the thread back in the beginning of September as a threat and then realized I never finished it. So I came back and finished it later. Now, the first one we're going to hit is the Blood Falls. Now, this picture, I will admit, somebody has played with the coloration on. The color is more of this rustish color that you can see here. That's more true color. This has been amped up a little bit to make it look a little bit more than it is. But it's dramatic. It's cool. But yes, there is that much red that comes out of this hillside, and it's kind of this oxide rust color. And you can see right here where it stains the ground. And this is coming out of this glacier right here. So, and another thing, and let's go back to Google Earth real fast. Anomalies, turn off New Schwabenland, Blood Falls, it's right there. Now, one thing that always sends up alarm bells in my head. Now, this is obviously a different time frame, so what we have to do is we have to go, we'll fast forward to the newest picture. We'll back off. Oops. There's a good one right there. Always makes me suspicious when I see different layerings of an area close by. It tells me that something's going on. There's some, I mean, look at that. You got 1, 2, 3, 4 different, no, yeah, just 4 because that covers all that. Different plates that they've utilized to make this up. Now, satellite will take a shot going the whole way. It doesn't stop. So why would they cut it off and not implement all of that? So what are they hiding? What are they trying to block here? That's all, but there's a lot of that in Antarctica, a lot of it, especially around McMurdo Base, this is pretty close to. This is just across the sound from McMurdo. So anyway, you can see where this redness is and how it comes out. And this is the glacier, obviously extending up this way. And then obviously you've got the red thing. It's pretty interesting. It's definitely something that is unusual. So we've got that. The reason for it, they say it's algae. Or they claim it's rust, iron oxide, massive amounts of rust in the ground. Well, you don't typically get iron oxide unless there's metal and massive amounts of it to cause that kind of thing. So what's metallic that's under the ice? And more, what's metallic that has iron in it? So just something that makes you scratch your head. Something doesn't quite add up there. Does it mean that there's anything there? Not necessarily. There, I mean, it could be a concentration of just really iron dense soil, and water running through it washes it out. I mean, it is possible. Is it the only explanation? No. So there's all the anomalies. Now we're going to start getting into the pyramids here. This is the Buzz Aldrin pyramid, the one that he commented on. Now this one here is one of those that looks really like a pyramid from one angle, but if you were to swing around over here, you could see that it actually is part of this chain. It's just like the end of the chain ends this way. It's pretty wild, but I'll go ahead and go natural on that one. Now this one is very interesting. This is Princess Elizabeth Station, and we'll get into this a little bit more later because I've got a story here. But this is Belgium's station. Now, keep in mind, and I repeat this often, Belgium is the seat of the European Union, is the seat of the World Court, is the seat of the World Diamond Trade. I believe it is also the seat of a couple of the big banks. So Belgium is about as deep state as it gets. And this station, once we look at it a little bit closer, will kind of blow your minds. We'll come back to that later. This is another pyramid, and this station is built very close to it. In fact, I've got a picture of someone standing somewhere on this pyramid taking a picture of this station. This is one of the truly pyramidal ones. I believe that's the Temple of the One, which we'll touch on later. And again, here's that Princess Elizabeth Station taken from a biplane, it looks like. Somebody flying, and you can see it's fairly pyramidal, but when you look at it from above, it doesn't really get there. And we've got Lake Vostok. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Lake Vostok. It's a lake that the Russians are concentrating on very much so. This here is a depth bedrock elevation and shows how deep the lake is. They're thinking that the water and whatever's in that lake is millions of years old. And I think they drilled like 4 miles through the ice or something to get to it. They supposedly broke through. We haven't heard much since then. There was a rumor of some life form that they found that, killed guys and stuff like that. But that was kind of a source of fall thing. So I don't know how much we can really lay stock in that as being true or something. But Lake Vostok's very interesting. 2.2 miles, excuse me. You can see how far this is a good graphic to show you how far down they had to drill just to get to the water down there. So, I mean, it was a big thing. It took them years. Didn't happen overnight. Now this is another one. I call this the snow ice face. You can see the eye, the nose, the mouth. A lot of people say this is a buried giant or a buried statue or whatever. I call it pareidolia, basically the human mind trying to make sense out of what it's seeing, so it anthropomorphizes everything. Any other angle, this does not look anything like a human face. You have to be looking at it this way for it to pop out. Everything else just looks like a couple snow cracks. And this is 2,400 feet tall from stem to stern. So if it was a mummy, that means this guy's like, I don't know, I did the math. It's like 4 miles tall. Okay, we've never had 4 mile tall beings on this planet. Sorry, doesn't work. And a 4 mile tall statue of something, well, and the only thing that survived is the face. Kind of think that's pretty doubtful too. I think we just have a hill with some crevices on it that just we just pick up that it looks like a face, and it isn't really. But I actually did I did the visual and kind of laid a a body out there, and if we were taking human body and normal, it was something like 4 miles tall is how tall this would be. I mean, this is half a mile right here. I mean, that's a long ways. It's not a small thing. So, oh, and I did this right when there was that group of videos that came out again this year. They'd been out 2 or 3 years ago too. Video from a chopper, and showing people over the Giza pyramids, and they had widened it out to make it look like it was in Antarctica. And then there was a really bad job of putting the Giza pyramids behind a snow background, and then they showed chopper flying into something. It was all just put together to make you seem like something was going on. It was pretty easily dissectable by being logical about it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like odd Antarctica stuff, but again, let's not make it up. Let's have it be real, because anytime we make stuff up, it diminishes the movement. It really does. So now this is the one that got turned into something by a lot of other people too. This is a half disc that looks almost perfectly circular based on the angle, but the satellite's taking it from a very oblique angle, a very flat angle like this. So you can't necessarily tell if that's truly circular from straight above. It's very hard, parallax and viewpoint and such, and shadows can play the tricks. Based on the shadows around, it's pretty obvious that this is a drop down, not a drop up. So based on that, I'm going to say that this is a meltwater pool that just happens to be somewhat semicircular. Maybe there's a bit of a hot spot there. I mean, there's a lot of potential hot spot activity down there. Could be a thermal thing, a volcanic thermal thing where it's just a hot spring, and it just happens to be about circular. And, that's very possible. Again, it's kind of cool the way it is. Let's not make it into something it's not, and just makes us look silly. And here I had zoomed out. You can see the 65-foot disc. The whole area is riddled with that kind of stuff. I mean, it's not like that it's a unique formation in the middle of other areas. And you can see the heavy shadows from the angularity too. So, I mean, it's pretty explainable if you just step back and look with a reasonable mind. Now, this is one that popped up that everybody was all gaga about. And this is on the Sandwich Islands, which was just north. They're kind of between, if I remember right, it's South America and Antarctica. And this one caused a lot of things. People were talking about it being a snow ship or whatever. I mean, to me, it looks pretty jagged here. I mean, you can see the top profile right here in the shadows, and that just looks like a bunch of rocks to me, or ice. And I flipped it around so it was vertical so you could see what the top shape would look like more naturally. And it doesn't jump out at me as being anything. But people made a big deal out of it because you could, it was a spaceship that crashed. Yeah, because it hit here and then it left this line. Well, there's rocks in the California desert that do the same thing. And basically what it is that the rocks actually kind of move with time from pressure, and they leave grooves. Now, the thing that people have to realize is that this is on a glacier. So what happens is that this is a structure that this obviously fell from. You can see the debris from its falling. And as it fell and as the glacier moved, it pulled it with it. Okay. Now we back off a little bit further. Here's that. Here where it fell. Here's the line. Here's the thing. Well, you can see the glacier here. You can see the path of the ice as it goes down here. And you can see all these cracks and stuff from the movement of the glacier. All right. And again, I backed off even further so you can see it again. You can see how far that is. So that's moved half a mile. Okay. It's not a long distance. All right. And here I've kind of illustrated, red arrows are glacier movement. This is the directional movement of the glacier. You can see it based on the lines that are in the glacier. And these blue ones are, you can see where there's wind that has created spots. And then you can see these, which are just crevices based on, folds in the land. As you can see, this line is exactly in line with the direction of the glacier movement. It's really that easy. There's nothing to be, I mean, if it was going at 90 degrees across the glacier movement, then that's another question, but it's going exactly the direction that the glacier is going in its movement. So nothing to really get that worked up about, just something that looks odd, that's strange, that we don't see every day, and we don't see it every day. And that's why it jumps out as being odd at us. I've already touched on that whole, the mystery submarines. Now, this was interesting. I had a hard time disproving this one. In fact, I'm going to say that this one could potentially be something. Because we know that the Nazis were playing a lot of games. They were moving stuff around all over. There's a lot of missing submarines from the World War II catalog that we have no idea where they are or where they went. It's really hard to tell here. I don't remember if I cleaned it up. Okay, there it is right here. You can kind of see. Now, if you were to imagine this to be rolled on its side or its bottom, and you've got the length of it, and you can see one of the fins right there, and that fin is pretty well shaped. I mean, it's not a natural shape. Let's just put it that way. And it's 195 foot long, which is not far off of what a submarine would be. I mean, it's in the right ballpark. And there were classifications of German submarines that we don't know as well. And then if we start looking a little bit farther, it's not that far. It's only 2 miles in from a potential pathway in. And the thing people have to understand is in Antarctica and the Arctic both are in constant ebb and flux. Massive ice recedes, massive ice recedes. They kind of tend to mirror each other. If one's high in ice, the other one's low, and they kind of do this. It's kind of a cycle. They call it climate change these days. We used to just call it life. But anyway, so at the time that this happened in the 40s, it's very possible that if we were to go back and look at the Arctic ice, we could see that the Arctic ice was probably massive back then. We couldn't get through. And that would probably mean that the Antarctic ice would be lesser. So that means that the ice would have been receded. So instead of the shoreline being all the way out here, the shoreline would have been more up in here or here. So this whole path 2.2 miles in wouldn't be that big of a deal. Thanks, Brendan. So it's not unreasonable to think that a couple submarines couldn't have ended up here. If this was a sheltered inlet that they decided to moor up in, and then after the war, for whatever reason, they got abandoned there, covered up. Now they're partially uncovering because the everything's shifting again. Ebb and flow, So it's pretty cool. I mean, this is a very easy path in based on what you can see here. And it's on the opposite side of the continent from the base, the main base. So it would stand to reason that they would, have a secondary spot away from the main base. They're not going to just leave this whole continent to itself. And the closest other station to it is these Australian stations. I mean, we're talking 30 some miles out to that point. I think it's only 30 miles to this here. So there's not a lot of stuff real close to it. So it's pretty interesting. I don't know that we're ever going to get any sort of answer to it for sure, but it is interesting. Pyramids, we're going to show you some here. Some of these are going to show up really well, some aren't. This is named Anderson Pyramid. It doesn't show up real well. Charpentier Pyramid, you can see that that's not a pyramid at all. It's just the end of and I believe that's the one that Buzz Aldrin tweeted, where you can see the rest of the range. It's kind of hooked to it. this end of it's almost a perfect little triangle, but that's it. Henderson Pyramid. This one is a real pyramid shape. You can see it. There's one side, there's another side, there's another side, and it's got these kind of outgrowths on it. So that one's interesting, but it's a 3-sided pyramid, not a 4. But that's one of the legit ones as far as I'm concerned. This one, again, is not a legit one. You can see that it's got stuff on it, and it's not straight lined at all. Obrecht, again, I mean, you can see where that doesn't really have anything. It just looks like a pyramid from one side. This is, you can see Princess Elizabeth Station there. This is one I was talking about earlier, and we had the pictures. And it's built on this ridge line. In fact, there it is right there. And then you can see that this pyramid does not look like a pyramid at all when you're looking down on it. So again, we just have to be careful about what we're looking at. Pyramid Peak, sort of pyramid-y, but not really. From one angle, standing on your left foot. This is called the pyramid, and you can see the shadow on the ground right here, but you can also see that it's really not. It's just again, just a carved out. I mean, you can see how angular everything, the glaciers leave everything here. So it's pretty easy to see what's not there. Now here's that Princess Elizabeth one again. We've already looked at that. You can see that they've got some stuff stacked behind here. Again, they do that all the time. They leave, buildings and stuff that are abandoned during the winter, and they come back and open them up for the summer for use. This one makes, I got a feeling there's something here. And I'll get into that later. And then maybe that's right now. So I don't remember if I covered that here. All right. Now this one here, this is, and the only reason I put this picture next to it is so that you could see the pyramidal shape in relation to the way the sun's hitting this and the way the sun hits this. Hey, Storm. So you've got this side in shadow. You've got this side here, which this side is not a perfect side. You've got this side, and you've got this side, which is buried underneath the snow. That one's pretty weird. And it has some definite oddities to it. And you can see where they've gotten some patched up satellite imagery. And look at what they call it. They call that the Temple of the One. We'll definitely touch on that later. There's a story there. And then these 3 pyramids here in a line. Again, they're not totally, this one's got this little bit of an extension off of it. It's probably a rock formation. This one could be a rock formation, but man, I doubt it. It's pretty perfect. This one obviously is not, because it goes, goes up that way. But that Temple of the One is kind of a mind blower. So we'll definitely touch on that later. Now, within just a few miles of this Temple of the One, let me step back a couple things here and explain something so this seems a little bit more odd than it might at first glance. One of the things that everybody has to realize is that Antarctica is a non-owned place, meaning you don't go down there and say, I want to be on Antarctica and I want to buy something. Actually, it's not Orion's Belt. At the time that these would have been built, Orion's Belt would have looked nothing like it does now. Same with the pyramids. At the time the pyramids constructed, Orion's Belt was not the shape that it is today. People tend to forget that stars move over time. In 3,500 years, there's a lot of difference in the way Orion looks. So that's a misnomer, and I kind of wish people would learn a little bit more about star movement and parallax and things like that. But Yeah, Orion's belt has changed drastically in the past 3,500 years. You can get any of the competent star programs and look at it and move it backward 3,500 years and see the change in the pattern in the constellation. And the main constellation's shape stays pretty similar, but the belt does change pretty drastically. Anyway, back to what I was saying. Antarctica is a nationless country. It does have its own laws. It does have its own money, supposedly. It has this treaty that all these different countries are signatory to, something like 63 countries, I believe now. But there's supposed to be no military presence there. There's supposed to be scientific only, and you can't leave or take anything with you. The only thing you can leave is for use in scientific studies. So that's why bases are able to be left, because they're permanent habitations. But they, all waste is transported out. There's this really nice deal on National Geographic called Continent 7. And it's about Antarctica and all the stuff that they have to do there. Just, some of the logistics and stuff. It's pretty fascinating. It's worth a watch if you're interested. But anyway, moving on. Within 50 miles of this stupid pyramid, this Temple of the One right here, are 2 blue ice runways. Now, I explained the difference between blue ice and regular skiways earlier. So, honest to God, blue ice runways that can handle big-ass airplanes like this and this, that are privately owned, and yes, I said privately, within 50 miles of this pyramid. Okay. Let me do this for you. We'll back out. Zoom in. Okay. Now the Pyramid of the One. They're also called pyramids in the South Pole. And again, you can see where this one doesn't really jive with the pyramidal shape. That one doesn't really either. It's just kind of a pile of rubble. This one's kind of hard to argue with, though. This one's really hard to argue with. Okay, so if we click on runways and skiways and the bases, and I back out just a little bit here. Union Glacier Airport, Wheel Ski. Now, it's claimed to be U.S. and Chile, but it's not. It's a company called Antarctic Logistics that owns it. And we'll touch on them a little bit here in one of the threads. And then we have this Patriot Hills and the Teniente Arturo Pero de Alister field. That's basically the same airfield. And again, it's a blue ice runway. And you can actually see it here on the map. This is a privately owned runway. Okay. And that runway services this base as well. And let's go here to Union Glacier. I mean, that runway is really obvious. And that's a well-maintained runway. I mean, that's not, and it's in the middle of the continent. It's not like it's at the edge. It's in the middle. So what the hell? Okay. Now, their excuse is the Vinson Massif, okay, which is not far away. If we were to measure, got Vinson Massif to the Union Glacier is 80 miles. Well, we go to Union Glacier to the pyramid, it's only 20 miles. Okay. If this base was for the Vinson Massif, they would have put it up here. A hell of a lot closer to where they're going. Now, the reason I'm bringing up the Vinson Massif and why it's an issue is because the excuse that they're using is that rich people, they want to pay to climb the highest mountains on the 7 continents. And the Vinson Massif happens to be the highest mountain on Antarctica. So their excuse is that they fly in here and then they travel the 80 miles to here so that people can climb the mountain. Well, why wouldn't they fly in a lot closer? I mean, it looks like they could probably put something down right in here, or hell, even in here or over here or any number of places versus here. I mean, doesn't make any sense. Now, I got handed another big one too. And since we're here, I don't have this in the thread yet. And this is the first time I'm showing this to anybody. I don't know if anybody's seen this yet. So this could be a world first. You'll notice what I've got right there. There's been a lot of speculation. There's some underground activity in this area. Now let's take and we'll go from Temple 1 up to this interest. Okay, it's only 50 miles, we'll call it. Okay. Now let's zoom right on in here. Nice little group of mountains there. But doesn't that look like you're looking down on the top of an opening that goes into the hillside? You can see where this kind of looks like this is all laid in and moving towards the throat. And this looks like it kind of folds under. And I think when I measured this was something like 700 feet across. Oh, excuse me. It's a 3,000 foot opening. Okay. I wish I had a different angle of this. I really do. Let me. Yeah, we've only got two pictures of this area. One from 1999 and this better one from 2012, and nothing after 2012. But in 2012, they thought enough of it to take a fairly high resolution picture and leave it there. Now, maybe we can zoom in here. I don't know. It's just, it could be just the eye being fooled by what's seeing here. It's hard to say. But, yeah, Street View, I wish. Muncie, no. You're only an hour late, so you got to stay an hour late just to make it. Even if we did get to 5 hours. I don't know. This one's got me stumped, I'll admit. I'm questioning it in some way because you can kind of see some of the rubble here that doesn't match. This could just be, stuff that's fallen off that edge and is making that pattern. I don't know. I'm not sure where to go. That's why I haven't made a big deal out of it, because I can't for sure say yes. But man, that's a weird one. And especially in such close proximity to this. And this is the highest mountain chain on the continent too. So, and this is basically water out here. If you were to look at the maps of what Antarctica would look like without ice. So this is something that's, I want to investigate more somehow. I just have no idea how. So could be something cool. All right, back to the thread. So again, we're within 50 miles of having 20 miles of having two ice runways that can support really big cargo planes. Okay. And there's, other than the one Chile base, there's nothing else there. There's no year-round American base. There's no year-round Russian base. There's no year-round German base. There's no year-round nothing. So make this make sense to me. This logic is not adding up to me here, and we'll get to it more later so that you understand. I hit the line of the snow seagull impression there, which I've already gotten. Now this is a good picture. Now this is an overlay of how big Antarctica is compared to North America. This just is so people can get a feel for how large this really is. It is a very, very large continent. So the distances we're talking about, we often hit 1,000 miles without even batting an eyelid. So, you know, we have to keep that in mind when we're looking at stuff, that some of these distances are truly big. And, you know, 1,000 miles over minus 40, 50, and 60 degree weather is not something to be taken lightly. Machinery does not work right in those conditions. Metal gets brittle, standard metals, you know, stuff that we have access to doesn't work as well. So, you know, it's a good thing to be aware of. Okay, so we're going to dive into my actual threads now. Those two, the first one was just a map thread. The second one was just an anomaly thread. This is where we get into the meat. And yes, I'm doing my dance moves. And that's all you're ever going to see out of me, because this homie don't dance. Remind me not to pick that up with that arm, please. Anyway, I'll just read this as we go, because I think I wrote it pretty well. Antarctica, something admittedly spoopy about the place. And no, I'm not going to go Nazi bases with this, but I am, however, going in this direction. Pyramid Mountain, 4,000 meters tall. Okay, 4,000 meters is 12,000 feet. Okay, so it's not a short deal. Quite a ways into the interior of the continent, and at the opposite end of the Ellsworth Range from the Vinson Massif, which we were just discussing, which at 4,897 meters is the highest point in Antarctica. 4,897 works out to here. 4,897 times 3.3. 16,160 feet or so. Mount Rainier is only 14,000 feet. So to give you guys an idea of how tall the tallest mountain in Antarctica is, we got to go to Alaska in North America to beat its height. So this is a good map showing how this is sliced up here. You can see the Vinson Massif is here within this Chilean claim. That's Chilean claim is actually fairly new. That did not used to be there. The Chilean claim also includes the Temple of the One, which I find kind of interesting, because the Temple of the One is right here, right about here. It might be outside of it. I'd have to look at the line. In fact, we can do that. So it's on the 90-degree west line. View grid. Whoa. Let's turn up a bunch of this stuff. Yeah, it looks like it falls within, because this is West 85, West 95, so the line's right here. So it would fall within it. So that whole area is now within Chile's purview. Even though they don't own it, it's within their stake. New Zealand, Australia, France, Australia, Norwegian, British, Argentine. Now, these are the countries that actually have claims on this area. Funny enough, the US doesn't have a claim. Russia doesn't have a claim. China doesn't have a claim. Japan doesn't have a claim. Yeah, we've got bases down there. So just because there's a claim doesn't mean that there's anything going on. And it might have to do with, we've got an agreement with New Zealand, because as you can see, Scott and McMurdo are right next to each other. But we've got this one here, so yeah, there's a lot of stuff down there. And that Temple of the One is also very near the lowest point in Antarctica, which is minus 2,540 meters, which again is 7,000 feet. That's a long ways down. That's a very deep trench. So when we go from 7,000 feet down to 16,000 feet up in just that time frame and that point of movement. So that's a very, very big difference. And the Temple of the One's right in the middle of that. So here's those planes again. There's only a few of what are known as blue ice runways in Antarctica that are capable of supporting the heavy aircraft like the US C-17 and the Russian Ilyushin 76. These again are heavy lifting cargo planes. This is what flies into McMurdo, from of all places, Lewis McChord. I've noticed that Lewis McChord is the one that tends to supply the planes that go to Antarctica. Why does Antarctica look so small on pretty much every map? Projection. Maps don't do, flat maps are horrid because they don't do a good job of keeping things in proportion. On flat maps, Greenland looks massive. Yeah, C-17. Never even caught that. Greenland looks massive, but it's really not that big. It's big, but it's not huge like they show it. They show it the size of Australia. It's not. It's not anywhere close. It's like half the size of Australia. So map projection is difficult. It's difficult to translate from a globe to a flat. And again, we're not getting a flat Earth. I don't believe it. I don't agree with it. Let's not even bring it up. All right. Here's a link to all the usable airfields in the Antarctic. Now, I use this link to formulate the map. Oh. Well, it's a good thing I did because they have now gotten rid of that link. Huh. Interesting. Now, the interesting part, there are 2 usable blue ice runways within 20 miles of Pyramid Mountain, which I've already touched on. Patriot Hills and Union Glacier, which we already looked at. Now, what's interesting is that both airfields are privately owned. Okay. On a continent where no one can claim it, nations share everything. 2 blue ice runways within 20 miles of this natural pyramid mountain are mysteriously and privately owned by AntarcticLogistics.com. All right. So these guys are interesting, and I've kind of asked for people to help me do some digging on it, but nobody has really stepped up. About our team, owners. These are the 5 guys that own Antarctic Logistics. Mike Sharp from the UK, Mike McDowell from Australia, Peter McDowell from Australia, David Roots from the UK, and Nick Lewis from the UK. In fact, I am going to, pardon me here, I need to power something up. I need to grab this because I have not grabbed this, and I need to make sure that we don't lose it. So bear with me here. Come on, open. There we go. Ow, stupid thing. That. Okay, my apologies for that. Sidetrack. Now you see how I screen grab stuff. Anyway, that's why I much prefer to do it on the computer than the phone, because I can get it at full, huge resolution. So these are the guys I want to do some digging on. I want to look at their connections to people. I want to see who they know, because if there's any spoopy background, is there any MI6? Is there any Australia SAS or Secret Service, or even US Secret Service stuff involved? Because these guys are obviously deep into this. Now, I think I've seen the David Roots name as an explorer, so I mean, he's kind of a legitimate dude, but that doesn't mean he doesn't have secondary things that he does. As far as the lines, I'm going to say that's cartographic. It does kind of have a ley line representation, but based on what? Where's the center point? Oh, that's a really good picture of the South Pole Station. This is the Amundsen Scott South Pole Station here. And you can see the South Pole right here with South Africa, Germany, Japan, France, England, US, Norway, Australia, and then a couple more around the corner that I can't see. So that's kind of a neat picture. That's actually a really neat picture. I only have one other picture of that. Save as, oops, cancel. Well, let me get it. I'll have to screen cap it. And here you go, Ski Antarctica. So yeah, South Africa's down there. They've got a couple bases, which is just strange. But if you think about it, South Africa is an English-speaking country. They're one of the part of the British Empire. But they're uniquely different because they've got a lot of Boer, Dutch, Holland input as well. So it's kind of a mix. But that's all obviously going to shit now because of all the problems down there right now. So, but here's what their big thing is skiing Antarctica. Okay. I mean, this is a huge operation. And for skiing, well, I mean, what's it going to cost you to go skiing? 20 million? No, not that. But I mean, $10,000 ski trip. I mean, 20,000, 30,000. I don't know. Oh, they've got a retreat now. Gee, retreat. What does that sound like? See, some of this is new since I went through this last time. So what everybody needs to do is this is Antarctic-logistics.com. Go ahead, dive into it, play with it, see what you guys find. Oh, highest peak, Mount Vinson. There you go. You can see them climbing it. Again, that's what they're going after. They're going after the adventurers. But man, I mean, this is millionaire. Oh, COVID updates. Ooh, can't go to Antarctica because COVID. So services, you see all the stuff that they do. I had a screen grab. Yeah, this thread got broke up, so bear with me here. Dutch. Thank you, Storm. For some reason that one always eludes me. If you dig around the ALE site, you'll find the owners, which that's interesting. I said back then 4 Brits and an Aussie. I could have been off with some outside investors that I can find no information on, and I couldn't. I dug through and found nothing based on what I could do. Now, admittedly, my ability to dig on individuals is very limited. I'm not very good at that. So I rely on others that are better at that. But that's not my thing. I can find nothing as far as a corporate, find nothing as far as that. So I was looking for help there. Basically, I think the elites have a place where they go down there, and it stands out to me as a very potential target. There could be anything happening down there from CRISPR, the gene manipulation, longevity. Heck, the sky's the limit. If we can tie known money, preferably to this corporation, it would warrant an all hands on deck dig. You can see where people don't get because the thread broke. So I go from 114 likes to 8. So most people have never seen this part of the thread because for some reason the thread broke and I tried to fix it and it wouldn't fix it. So you guys are seeing the rest of the thread. If you've read it before, you've probably not seen this. I have ideas about mapping and stuff that I would need help with as well, which I've actually already finished. There's no map that includes all the airfields, bases, POIs, and named areas of Antarctica. all of that together might show some more interesting things. Now, this was done in August of 2019. Since then, I've completed it. So I've got all that done. So, yeah, at that time, one other interesting tidbit I noticed was the Pyramid Mountain falls within a non-claimed slice of the continent. And then we've got Rothschild Island, which is down there as well. Oh, and this was interesting as well. All right. Antipodes. Here, I'll do it real quick. If we look at Greenland, okay, we got Greenland right here. You notice that Greenland is an antipode to Antarctica? Meaning, if you were to take and drill at any point, obviously, except for right there, straight down, say in the middle of Greenland, and drill straight through the core of the Earth in a straight line, straight down, straight through the core, and go out to the other side, you would come out in Antarctica. Kind of funky, huh? What would be the odds of that? Actually, it looks like Antarctica there's portions of Canada and Alaska that would hit it too. That's wild. I need to save this. Okay. Is this still here? Okay, this is where I went with the Strava heat map. Now, the Strava heat map, all the information on Antarctica and Greenland are gone. I was able to find my one important one for Greenland and was able to later prove. In fact, on one of my shows, we actually went live and figured it out. There's actually a mining deal that didn't used to show up there, but is there now. But every one of these Strava maps heat spots that I was able to find actually lined up with a known base. So once I got all my bases mapped, I went back and rechecked it with the Strava heat map. Every one of them had a corollary. There was nothing out in the middle of somewhere that, whoa, there's no base here. There's nothing showing. No unknown lists, no unknown, hey, this one wasn't on this list, but there's a base there. Nothing, none of that. And, that's a big continent. I've looked over a lot of it and I could have missed some things, but I mean, the more people look, the better off we're going to be as far as getting all that stuff. I don't remember what this is. Oh, can't even view that one here. Oh, okay, maybe this is what happened. There it is. My cutting and pasting killed the links. So here's a list of all the runways in Antarctica, and this is what I used to build my list, because it shows all of the latitude and longitudes. So I utilized this, got it in there. Which one is this one? I don't remember what this one is. Oh, Steve Quayle. Now, Steve Quayle is the one who wrote the book that gave me the info about, book. In reference to the first part of what we covered about Mars, this book here, trying to get it so you guys can see it with all the reflection. Here, I got to minimize this screen. Sorry, can't have that brightness. Psychic Warrior, David Morehouse. This is about the RV program, the remote viewing program. It's an excellent book. I recommend it if you want to learn about remote viewing. Now, I've shown you guys this one before. This is the one by Stephen Quayle, Empire Beneath the Ice. Yeah, it shows a flying disc. Again, we're not going to go there. This is where I got the coordinates or the basic location for that Svarthmaren base 211 that I have marked. So that's where I get that info from. Okay, back to that. So Steve Quayle, who's the author of that book I just showed you, all ties together. He's got a lot of info. Why are world leaders visiting Antarctica? Well, oddly enough, I touch on that here in a bit. And then, I was smart and linked my own thread right in, so I don't have to, I can go right to it. Okay. Now, you'll notice I wrote that thread back in August of 2019. And Storm will attest to this, and this is something I'll say again. I went digging further beyond that once I finished that thread, and not long after, I actually got kind of freaked out because I knew I was coming up against something that was big. It was dark. It was, I don't scare too easily. I'm too pragmatic, and it takes more than a ghost to make me go ooh. But I was genuinely freaked. I had actually had to step away from Antarctica for quite a while because I felt that I was getting attacked. And Storm, like I said, will attest to that. She's part of the group that I kind of hang out with. And I was just like, guys, I'm freaked out here. There's something here I'm bouncing up against. It's just, I can't go any further. It's stopping me. So it was kind of a good idea kind of a good thing that it did, because what happened is it forced me to take a few steps back, reassess where I was going. I had a certain thought process going on. What I had thought at the time was that, and I'll say it because, why not? It's a theory. It kind of fits, but it's not, turned out to not be the right one. I had seen something where there was a rumor that the Nazis had discovered a supercomputer down there. And what I had thought that they had done was discovered an ancient AI that was actually an evil AI. And we had inadvertently stumbled upon it. And it actually was the evil. And it was utilizing, and all this technology push and everything we've had in the past 100 years, 200 years, has been at the behest of this entity to help us free it. In other words, to give it the tools to free itself. Now, some of that still may be true based on what's happening, but the AI part of it, I've set aside. I don't think it's a supercomputer. I never was able to find any sauce on that whatsoever. So I stepped away from that particular thought process, but I stayed focused on the idea that there was something dark and evil down there. And lo and behold, I think I found it. So you'll now understand why I started this thread the way I did. It's time. If you've read my previous Antarctica digs, you'll know that there's a seeming hyper interest in the area by the world elite. In the current era, it dates back to Hitler and his obsession with the occult and its effect on Nazi and Aryan destiny, and another version of the New Schwabenland map. I'll touch briefly on the Nazi landing and base, but that is not the primary direction of this thread. Admiral Byrd ran into some pretty crazy difficulties down under as well during Operation High Jump. If we take away the flying discs, he still had to deal with the temps and crazy issues that minus 60 degrees cold brings to everything. Now, I'm going to say right now that I am in contact with somebody whose grandfather was not for Operation High Jump, but was there for Operation Deep Freeze in 1955. Okay. And she has all of his notes. It turns out this guy turned into a James Bond type thing. And she's got all this documentation and stuff. And I'm not going to say much more because it's her story. She's writing it, she's telling it, but she's sharing it with me. But oh my God, there is so much more that is going on down there that we're not aware of. And I'm opening my mind to the flying discs thing quite a bit more, especially for the Admiral Byrd thing. Now that I'm seeing some sauce that's outside of the normal circles. So we'll be touching on this more in the future as that story comes out. But let's just say I'm having to do some readjusting in my mental thought processes. And this is just all within the past couple weeks. So as I get more information and I'm allowed to share what I know, I will do so. But anyway, we're not going down that path right now. We're going down this path. Now, this is Admiral Byrd, and Admiral Byrd was in charge of the first 4 or 5 expeditions down there, including this Operation Deep Freeze that I'm talking about. The first couple phases of Operation Deep Freeze. Operation Deep Freeze ran from the 50s through the 80s, I believe. It was multiple trips, everything going on down there. Anyway, so there's that. And then the Nazis surveyed, and many believe found there an opening into a lush hidden world, an area called New Schwabenland. I have the original Nazi map I'll include, along with my own mock-up of it on Google Earth. And again, you guys have seen that already. I showed that to you. There's supposedly an opening to the Space 211 in the Svartmaren mountain range. And here, I just showed you guys the book. So we've already looked at this, and you can see it in the big picture, and there's the book cover. And here's the portion out of the book that actually gives the info. Was located inside a prominent ice-free mountain in the Mühlig-Hoffmann Mountains of New Schwabenland, Queen Maud. Again, we found the Mühlig-Hoffmann Mountains. So it's possible, Storm, denser air. That's the thing everybody forgets is the air gets colder, it gets denser. So, and that would provide more lift. And again, here's my, ice-free mountain, prominent ice-free mountain. It fits, and it's within that triangle of flags that the Nazis had dropped down there too, or it's close. So, I mean, that was again part of my, and I figured it was going to be the other end of the mountain range. I figured it was going to be fairly close to where they dropped some flags, because that's the areas they're going to explore. This is a picture of Admiral Byrd. I don't know if this was actually high jump. This could have been deep freeze, but this is, I believe, at the South Pole, which would have been deep freeze because I don't think they got the South Pole and high jump. High jump was mainly around the edge of the continent. But if we have learned anything in the past 2 years, 3 now, conspiracy theory is not a bad word. It just means more digging is needed. Conspiracy theory, as most of you probably know already, was a phrase coined by the CIA to try to discredit people that had alternative theories that did not fit the narrative. And, well, we're full of that. We're full of alternative theories, and we're full of not fitting the narrative. So, well, what the heck did you just do there? Stupid thing. All right, that's cool and all, but we know better than that. We know all that. We expect better of you, Dano. So don't be throwing rotten tomatoes at me. And never mind the guy in the red shoes. Just a statement now before we go any further. All the Google Earth stuff that you will see in this thread are images and locations of my own work. Meaning I took the time to plot and verify the location of each and everything I have tagged as a point in these maps. As far as I know, this may be the most complete mapping of points in Antarctica, period, that is publicly available. I'm sure that there's some privately military available stuff, but I don't think anybody in the public domain has anything close to this. I looked for months for something like it and couldn't find anything, so I decided to make my own. And again, at the end of the thread, there'll be access to the KML file. And you can put it on your own Google Earth and play with it just like I do. And you'll have all of it, and you can tag it. And if somebody says, hey, look at this, and you can go, oh, no, we know what that is. And that happens a lot. You'll get somebody that says, oh, this is new, boom. Oh, no, that's so-and-so. It's really easy at that point to separate the wheat from the chaff. So don't worry about that link because that's not it. So, do I think anything of the above has anything to do with what I'm going to show below? Other than the search from the occultic unknown, no. New Schwabenland is way too far out of the way, by hundreds of miles to even be part of what I bring forth below. Now, if we just take the edge of New Schwabenland, which is this nice big fat yellow line, and we go to the closest point that's talked about in this thread, which happens to be the Temple of the One, it's 900 miles away. Okay. That's a long distance. So I don't think that we've got Nazi involvement with what's going on over here. The Nazi involvement is something completely different. Okay. Before I get going too much on the new stuff, let me say, and I've already said this, but I'll reread it. It's taken me well over 6 months to get to the point of being able to write this. This is my first dig on Antarctica. I had a suspicion that something big was down there, something inherently evil. In fact, I was on the verge of going further than the original dig, but something kept me from doing so. I was sort of freaked out about it, to be honest. My dig buddies will attest to this as we talked about it, and I decided to walk away for a little while. I'm glad I did, as the extra time let me approach the problem from another few angles, and I have resolved it to my own satisfaction. I was right, but not in the way that I was originally thinking. And I think now is the time for it to come out. Back then was too early. And yeah, I do think so. I think a year ago people would just, yeah, whatever, dude. Now people are a little bit more open to the idea of a spiritual war and good and evil, and they're being honest to God evil entities in our way. So after 6 months, let's move onward. Now we're getting to the meat of it. Let's stay in modern discovery era of Antarctica. So we're not going to get into any of the ancient stuff. This is just all going to be current. So 1940s onward. 1800s onward. Let's focus on Mount Erebus, the most active volcano in Antarctica and one of only 5, count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 volcanoes in the world with an active lava lake. We all know of another one that's very common. It's in Hawaii called Kilauea. And Kilauea is one of the 5, as is Mount Erebus, that have an active lava lake. Vanuatu, one of the volcanoes down in Vanuatu, has one, and there's 2 in Africa that are on the Great Rift. So, and Mount Erebus is a seeming focus of many elites, and we'll see that here in a minute. So instead of talking, I'll let a wiki screen cap do the work. Mount Erebus is noted for its active anorthoclase feldspar phonolite lava lake. Say that 5 times fast, which has been in continuous activity since at least 1972, or probably much longer. Mount Erebus volcano lava lake is connected to a long-lived, open, and stable magma plumbing system, which might have been in place for the past 17,000 years. Now, notice that they're talking might and possibly and probably, meaning they have no freaking clue how long it's been there. It could have been there for millennia, and they'd have no idea. They're guessing. Okay. The current activity at the lake includes spattering and sometimes strombolian explosions that can eject bombs outside the crater. Strombolian explosions is when you see a lava lake that just erupts kind of, and you see these booms, and you can see all these little things going out, the glowing things going out. And sometimes you'll see them, then they land, and you can see them roll down the sides of the mountain. That's what's known as strombolian. Persistent lava lakes are very rare and require a delicate equilibrium between heat supply and heat loss. Heat supply is provided by the rising magmatic gases from the magma chamber through a liquid-filled conduit, i.e. lava, and is counterbalanced by intense heat loss at the surface of the lava lake, the air temperature and such. I mean, can you think, we're talking minus 40 and 60 degrees. Can you imagine the amount of thermal energy it takes to maintain? Yeah, we're talking 1800, 1900, 2000 degree lava, but that's a lot of negative temperature to overcome. There are only a handful of long-lived lava lakes in the world. Ethiopia, Congo, which were the 2 in Africa, Vanuatu, and then Kilauea, and then every once in a great while for short periods of time in other volcanoes. So Erebus itself is a very interesting name. Let's see what dictionary.com has to say about it. Definition of Erebus: a personification of darkness in Greek mythology, or a place of darkness in the underworld on the way to Hades. What? Okay, that's kind of interesting. Alrighty then. So, a personification of darkness and a place of darkness in the underworld on the way to Hades. All right, let's continue. Mount Erebus was discovered on January 27th, 1841, and observed to be an eruption by polar explorer Sir James Clark Ross on his Antarctic expedition, who named it and its companion Mount Terror after his ships HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, which were later used by Sir John Franklin on his disastrous Arctic expedition, which is north. Present with Ross on the HME Erebus was young Joseph Hooker, future president of the Royal Society. Now, that should set off some alarm bells. Royal Society is like the Illuminati scientific community in Europe, specifically in England. They're huge. I mean, they're. It does not surprise me that they had a representative on this trip, and a close friend of Charles Darwin. Again, Erebus is a dark region in Hades in Greek mythology, personified as the ancient Greek primordial deity of darkness, the son of chaos. All right, this is, I mean, wow. Could you get any more dark? Okay, now, this thing's being a pain. And I want you to keep in mind, this photo is actually a photo of the Erebus lava lake. This is not a photo of something else. This is actually Erebus. I made sure of that. Okay. As noted, the continual lava lake in Mount Erebus is one of only 5 in the world. So in the personification of darkness and a place of darkness on the way to the underworld, we have a lake of fire. All right. Is this starting to maybe ring some bells? Oh, did I mention this at the bottom of a pit? I mean, not that you couldn't see that, but what do you think the bottom of a crater is? And it happens to be on the bottom of the world, too. Is this starting to ring any bells yet? Sure, I'm hoping so. And yes, these are images of the Mount Erebus lava lake. 2 separate ones, 2 different ones of the same lake. Okay. So some other interesting tidbits about Mount Erebus. Recently, geologists spent tens of millions of dollars in seismically mapping the mountain. This was done by laying hundreds of sensors about 6 foot long all over the mountain in a grid pattern. Now, that series I talked about, Continent 7 on the History Channel, or Nat Geo, I can't remember, but it's one of those. It's called Continent 7. They discussed this mapping project, and that's where I knew about it. At that time, I couldn't remember what it was, but now I remember. Now, why did they go to that effort for this mountain, which has little or no effect on humanity? I mean, there's hundreds of other volcanoes that have not had internal survey of this level done ever. I mean, they haven't done Mount St. Helens, and you know, that one's got a death toll, a pretty good death toll already, and they haven't mapped it like that. They haven't mapped many volcanoes that way at all. So why would they spend all the time and effort and money to do it in Antarctica, which makes it 10 times tougher than doing it anywhere else because of the location, logistics, getting the stuff there, the temperatures, all of that. I mean, it makes it tougher. It's not easy. So why would they go to the effort to seismically map the mountain? Well, part of the seismic mapping of a mountain is that they are able to detect holes, caves, tunnels, pathways. They learn where openings are. They learn where passages are. They learn where they can maneuver through. Okay. It may not seem important yet, but let me get to it. It also lets them determine rock density and a bunch of other things too. I mean, there's a legitimate reason for doing so. They're trying to map out the magma chamber of the mountain and how the lava comes up and all that stuff too. But they're working on the flanks. They're not working in the center. So It makes me wonder. So I'll post a video later that explains part of what I think they're looking for and how it's achieved, fumaroles. But I think they're trying to map passages within the mountain itself. We have all been all but told that they are there. Now, this is a picture of a fumarole off of Mount Erebus. What a fumarole is it's basically a steam tube that comes through the ice out of the mountain somehow. Okay, so keep in mind, this is a passage, this is steam coming out of the mountain somehow that's able to make its way, and it makes these formations because it comes out through the ice, and as it's steam, it condenses and forms this big thing. Well, it's called a fumarole. Okay, and they're kind of cool. They're neat looking, and these are all. I mean, there's thousands of them, well, tons of them. So that means that there's tons of passages into the interior of the volcano somehow. All right, moving along. Another thing of interest is that the main U.S. base, McMurdo, is only 22 miles away. It's the closest base to the mountain. Notice how chopped up satellite imagery is in this area? And look at this. I can't even tell you how many slices of imagery there are there. What are they trying to hide? What are they not showing us there? Why would they need? I mean, that's out of the whole area. That's probably the most satellite pictured spot there is. Why do they need to have 742 different pieces of grid to make up this area? That doesn't make any sense at all. Again, what are they hiding? I mean, look at this. I mean, you got, well, that one's important. You got this, the green, you got this other color, you got another green, you got that one up there, you got this long strip right here, you got this one, you got that one, you got that one, you got this one, you got one here, one here, one here, one here, one here, one there, another one there, another one. I mean, it's ridiculous. There's probably 20 different patches in that one shot. It's crazy. But that's usually a pretty good indication that they're hiding something. But what? We don't know. Okay, so, oh, you pile. Let's move to the other side of the continent, but at the other end of the same mountain chain that comprises Mount Erebus and the backbone of the continent. This line I've drawn is effectively what is, I would call, the backbone of the continent. It's effectively a single mountain chain. It's not quite so prominent through here, but it effectively moves this whole way all the way through the continent. Okay, so Mount Erebus is down at this end. Okay. We're going to go to this other end down here where the Trinity Church is. Okay. This one, now I will admit right now that my source on this is single source, and it's a source I normally sneer at. Source should fall. But this particular one resonated with me for some reason. It made sense. It added up to me. There were other outside sauce on parts of it that were verifiable, that I was able to verify, and I did put in here. So some of the specifics I was not able to verify as far as the Arc of Gabriel, but overall, the trip, the meeting, all of that, I was able to verify. So that all did definitely happen. So the only thing that's questionable is the Arc of Gabriel. Okay. And finding a source anywhere else on the Arc of Gabriel is exceptionally difficult. Now, that doesn't surprise me, because if it's a Muslim or Moorish specific item, we would have no documentation of it in the Christian or Catholic tradition, because it's not part of our tradition. So it's not unsurprising we don't know about it, but just being honest there. So have you heard of the Arc of Gabriel? No, neither had I until recently. But its appearance occasioned some pretty spectacular meetings and trips of some unlikely people to the land way down under, Antarctica. Sorry, Aussies and Kiwis, I know you hate me saying that, but I say way down under, not just down under. Now, this is a picture of the Patriarch Kirill on Antarctica I mean, so we know that he went there. I mean, the Washington Post. I mean, so there's a secondary sourcing for this article. But let's go to this one because this one gives the most detail. And regrettably, right there is the, try to zoom in so you guys can see a little bit better. Get some more honey tea in my throat. Russia's top religious leader. Now, this is back in February 18th of 2016. Russia's top religious leader performs ancient ritual in Antarctica over Saudi Arabia's mysterious Arc of Gabriel. Now, I would really like to date this with Trump's trip to Saudi Arabia. Because if I remember, Trump went to Saudi Arabia really early in his presidency. And this was just like within a month of him taking office. So I'm curious there. I'm curious if maybe something happened that precipitated this set of events between Trump and bin Salman. So let's just put that on the back burner. I haven't gone there yet. But by Sorshafal, so sorry. And what we can only conclude is one of the most bizarre reports ever circulated in the Kremlin. The Ministry of Defense is reporting today that the global leader of the Russian Orthodox Church, Patriarch Kirill of Moscow, arrived in Antarctica earlier today, where he joined up with the vast Federation naval armada transporting from Saudi Arabia the mysterious Arc of Gabriel, entrusted to Russia's care by the custodian of the two holy mosques, and performed an ancient ritual over read from a secret text given to him by Pope Francis just days prior in Cuba, when these leaders of Christianity's top two sects met for the first time in nearly 1,000 years. There's a whole bunch of stuff there that I verified. Yes, Kirill did go to Antarctica. We've got the picture of it. Yes, he and Pope Francis met in Cuba for the first time those two leaders had met in close to 1,000 years, and they did meet in Cuba. And I did verify the Russian fleet went from Saudi Arabia to Antarctica. So I verified portions of this, enough that I think the framework survives. Okay. So again, here we have another picture of the patriarch with some happy feet. According to this minister, now, if he arrives in Antarctica on the 18th of February, 2016, that means that's when they were in Antarctica. So that means that it had already had to have left. And it's going to take more than a month to sail from Saudi Arabia down to Antarctica. So this is something that got put into place and happened before Trump became president. So now that I think about that, think that through a little bit further. So just, we need to keep that in mind. According to this Ministry of Defense report, of which we had previously reported in our 6th of December 2015 report, Russia begins transport of Saudi Arabia's mysterious Arc of Gabriel to Antarctica. The mysterious Arc of Gabriel was first discovered in Mecca on the 12th of September 2015 by a construction crew tunneling underneath the Masjid al-Haram Mosque, the Grand Mosque, and who, when attempting to unearth it, were all killed by a massive plasma emission that killed a further 107. Now, let's stop there for a second, and because that sounds pretty fantastical. Does anybody remember Raiders of the Lost Ark at the end when the Ark of the Covenant, they lifted the lid on the Ark of the Covenant and it shot out lightning and killed everybody, and they didn't have their eyes open? Turns out there's probably some basis and truth to that. I'm grabbing a book. I'll have to stop share to show it, but I'll show this later. I've got a pretty good book by a guy named Lawrence Gardner. It's called Lost Secrets of the Ancient Art, of the Sacred Art. In it, he goes through and lays out a case for the fact that the Ark was actually an electrical capacitor. Sorry, stumble over words sometimes. So effectively, the cherubs on top were for gathering, think Tesla type capabilities. They were the cherubs were able, because of their shape and their form, were able to gather electricity from the atmosphere. And because of the construction of the box, with it being wood, gold, and the spacing and everything, it became a storage device. It could store capacitance. This is why the priests had to wear special clothing and stuff to even interact with it. Otherwise, they'd just kill them and just fry them. Okay. And that's why the Ark could be used to level, armies, because it literally would just, okay. So there's some, mistakenly, or maybe not mistakenly, Hollywood kind of showed us some truth there. All right. And it's backed up. The thought process that it's an electrical capacitor is backed up here and shown. So if we have a potential huge electrical capacitor in the Ark of the Covenant, why would the Arc of Gabriel not be something similar? Okay, plasma. Well, plasma is just another version of electricity. It's super excited and super hot. So it has a different capability and a different way of achieving it, but there's not outside the realm of possibility knowing what we know about the Ark of the Covenant. Okay, so it sounds fantastical, but when we start researching and start digging into it, it's not that fantastic. I mean, if you start looking at the Egyptian djeds and stuff like that, you'll start realizing that the Egyptians were a lot more electrically knowledgeable than we give them credit for. We are not the first ones that have played with this stuff in history, in recorded history. I'm not talking prehistory, I'm talking recorded history. So no, DEW is not. Are you talking about direct energy weapon? No, that's a different type of energy, but it's an energy. Similar, but different. So anyway, I just wanted to touch on that so you didn't think that I was just kind of blowing this out there. There's actually some basis in fact on what we're saying here and a possibility. We don't know everything, obviously, but I mean, you take what Tesla knew and what he was able to do. You take the fact that the Ark of the Covenant could be a potential electrical capacitor and conductor if under the right circumstances. I mean, it could jump. It just seems like it's out there. Exactly, Lisa, because it's been hidden from us. But that doesn't mean it's not real. It doesn't mean it's not true. So anyway, even worse, this report continues. On the 14th of September 2015, so just a few days later, a second attempt to unearth the mysterious Arc of Gabriel, another massive plasma emission, killed an estimated 4,000 more people, but which Saudi officials blamed on a stampede. And I remember that report. Okay, I remember the report about the stampede that killed 4,000 people. I don't know if that's real or if that's just some sort of Photoshop deal. So, not going to put too much faith in that. Okay, so going on with the Ministry of Defense report. After the catastrophic death toll involved with the Saudis' second attempt to remove this mysterious device, His Holiness Patriarch Kirill was then contacted by the Grand Mosque emissaries in regards to one of the oldest Islamic manuscripts possessed by the Russian Orthodox Church that was saved from the Crusaders in 1204 when they sacked the Church of Holy Wisdom, now known as the Hagia Sophia, in Constantinople, present-day Istanbul, Turkey, titled Gabriel's Instructions to Muhammad. And this next paragraph is kind of important. It's actually very good for us to know. It provides a little bit of perspective for us Westerners. Important to note and virtually unknown in the West, whether the Roman Catholic Crusades, and then like the mirror today, were not only against the peoples of Islamic faith, but also against those having Russian Orthodox faith too. and why during these crusades the Russian Orthodox Church not only protected their own religious libraries from being destroyed, but also those belonging to Muslims. So that would probably explain why the two leaders of the two churches haven't talked in over 1,000 years, because, well, there you go. So that gives a reason why that has never happened. And as far as the arc being nuclear, possible, I suppose, but I think electrical is a lot more reasonable. Well, it depends on which arc are you talking about. Are you talking about Covenant or Gabriel? Because we got two now that we got to differentiate between. As to the contents of this ancient Islamic manuscript, Gabriel's instructions to Muhammad, it centers around a group of instructions given to Muhammad by the angel Gabriel in a cave called Hira, located in the mountain called Jabal an-Nur near Mecca. Jabal an-Nur near Mecca, wherein this heavenly being entrusted into Muhammad's care a box or ark of immense power. He was forbidden to use it as it belonged to God only, and was instead to be buried in a shrine at the place of worship the angels used before the creation of man, until its further future uncovering in the days of resurrection. I'm not even going to bother saying that. On the 6th of December 2015, this report notes, Federation Naval Research Vessel Admiral Vladimsky departed the Saudi Arabian port of Jeddah with the Arc of Gabriel bound for Antarctica, accompanied by a vast naval armada ordered for its protection by President Putin, and that also included capsules with Russian soil to be placed in areas of military glory and burial sites of Russian sailors at selected ports of call along the long journey to the Southern Ocean. That smells like a cover story to me, Hey, go out and do this. Heroes of the Soviet Union, bury their stuff, but make sure, your real job is to do this, but the cover is to, do these hero stops every so often. And again, who knows if that's a real picture of the fleet. Fleets don't normally sail in that pattern except for pictures. Upon his learning of the grave and global implications associated with this mysterious Arc of Gabriel, this report continues, Pope Francis contacted Patriarch Kirill, requesting an urgent and immediate meeting while warning that the end is near. Now, we all know about Pope Francis, so we know what side he plays for. After which Patriarch Kirill agreed to meet the Roman Catholic Church leader in Cuba on the 12th of February, an historic meeting between these two leaders that had not taken place between these church leaders in nearly 1,000 years. It was like 968 years, I think, is the time frame that we're talking. So here's a picture of the two meeting. So, the meeting did happen. They met in Cuba in the February of 2016. Though the exact nature of the talks between the Patriarch and the Pope remain classified at a much higher level than we're granted access to, Ministry of Defense analysts in this report do state that an ancient secret manuscript was given to Patriarch Kirill by Pope Francis that pertains to the Arc of Gabriel, whose legend behind it claims it was written directly by the Watchers described in the Book of Enoch. Okay, so we're getting into Vatican secret archives, the Watchers, and Enoch, Book of Enoch now. Again, all familiar ground to us, as this is all stuff outside the regular norm, but stuff that we know is potentially there, and there's a lot of stuff there that we don't know about, and we're aware of that. Patriarch Kirill, while using the secret text given to him by Pope Francis, performed an ancient ritual over the Arc of Gabriel in the Russian Orthodox Holy Trinity Church. Now, it's not the only church in Antarctica, but it is the only consecrated church in Antarctica. So there's other buildings that are used as churches, but this is the only consecrated church in Antarctica. The consecration process is something that you can look up yourself, but it's basically a blessing that has to be performed. But it is a specific and very important designation between a church and a consecrated church. Especially in Catholicism or in Russian Orthodoxy. And where immediately thereafter, this mysterious artifact was transported into the vast interior of this cold and foreboding continent by a highly specialized Spetsnaz unit to a destination and purpose not identified by the Ministry of Defense. And that is a picture of the Trinity Church in Antarctica. Okay. So I think that pretty much covers that. So we've got that info. Now, I don't even have to do that because we've just gone through that. Now, the Bellinghausen Station is a Russian station. This is Chile. This is another Chile base. There is an airport that comes up off this way. In fact, you can see the end of the dirt runway right there. But Trinity Church is right here. And that matches with what we saw because you saw the picture of it with the sound behind it. So, I mean, it's, nothing, no reason to not believe it. Okay, so how does this tie in with Mount Erebus? Well, let's take a look at some interesting geology and topography of the area. There's basically a mountain range that runs the entire width of Antarctica from Mount Erebus on one end to the top of the Antarctic Peninsula on the other. Okay, so we have the Trinity Church up here. Now, important to remember is that they talked about the Spetsnaz team heading into the vast interior of the continent. Okay, well, in order for them to go from here on this island, which is just up here, to the vast interior, well, they're going this way. Which way are they heading? Bonk. I don't know. Seems kind of coincidental to me. But anyway, we're back on the spine of the continent with Mount Erebus here. Right in the middle is where we're going to end up. But I want you to notice that. I mean, there's not much they could have done. To go to the interior of the continent, they would have had to come this way. Because there's no other way. I mean, they couldn't go this way. Well, they could, but, it'd be swimming part of the way. So they're going this way to the interior of the continent because this is the interior of the continent. What's in the interior of the continent that we know about? Well, let's continue on and we'll find out. Now we have two ends. What's in the middle? Gee, what was I just pointing at? If you read both of my previous digs on Antarctica, you know that right smack dab in the middle is one of the pyramid mountains that exist down there. You notice I use the term mountain in quotes in this case. But it goes even deeper than that. Remember the mention of Buzz Aldrin in his trip and then the tweet, "We are in danger, it is evil itself"? For the sake of argument, I'm going to accept that this is a genuine tweet. There has been some conjecture that it was a hoax, but I've yet to see anything concrete on it one way or the other. Tweets are easily deleted. You can't go back in his tweet history and find it. Some people say it never happened. Other people say it's a hoax. Other people believe it 100%. Let's go with it, because not long after this, Aldrin, and I didn't put it in here, Aldrin was medically evacuated from the continent. Okay. So why would he need to be medically evacuated from the continent? It doesn't make sense. I mean, Aldrin's a pretty tough old bird. I mean, we've all seen the right stuff. We know what they had to go through to prove that they could get to space. Aldrin went through that. Okay. So he's not exactly a wuss. He's not going to just lay down at the first thing that happens. It's going to have to be something pretty drastic and pretty, he's a little bit older, but that doesn't mean he's not tough. Believe me, I know some tough old birds that make me look weak. So what is it that's going to scare somebody that's been through that kind of crap in their life to the point where he's going to post something like that and then have to be medically evacuated off the continent? They had to take him out through McMurdo. Okay. The pieces aren't adding up to me. There has to be something down there that caused this. Was he being introduced to something that caused him to have issues? Don't know. So, funny enough, Google Earth even has a name tag for that pyramid. Temple of the One. Wait, what? Temple of the One? What the fuck? And go ahead, go to Google Earth or Google Maps, type in Temple of the One, Antarctica, and hit enter. I'll wait. Take a couple seconds. It's good. It's good practice. when I originally started researching this mountain, it was not tagged that way. Back when I did my first thread a year ago, it did not have this tag. So sometimes somebody's tagged it as such and has labeled it as such, which, yeah. As discussed, stupid thing. As discussed in my previous thread, this temple has near it the only two privately owned blue ice runways in the entire continent. So we've already touched on that. You know, got the Temple of the One here. You've got the Union Glacier here. You got the Patriot Hills here. And both of these airports were supposedly built to serve as Vinson Massive. Okay, so does that make sense when you've got this right here? Right in between them? Not really to me. But hey, what do I know? I'm the one that's trying to be logical. Part of that can be explained away by Vinson Massive. Antarctica is only 90 miles away. But the peak conquering drive of mountaineers can't justify the expense of two blue ice runways. Well, what's another name for Satan? Muncie. How is he portrayed? A lot of times he's portrayed as a dragon. On the other hand, and this is getting back to the Antarctic logistics thing. On the other hand, the company provides logistical support for a fee that can justify anything they want. Oh, looky here. And yes, these are the guys that run those two runways. Dig on the website. You'll see. See if this link is still any good. Okay, we grabbed this page before, but let's read this. Antarctic Logistics and Expeditions offers air transportation, logistic support, guided experiences for those venturing to the interior of Antarctica. We remain 30 years later, we remain the most experienced private operator on the continent with an impeccable safety record. Oh, they actually have changed it. That used to say that they provided services for governments and science and things like that. So they've changed the verbiage to not say that anymore. I've noticed that after I first brought these guys out in my first page, my first dig, the website changed. So, and it has me, I mean, websites get updated all the time, but it's kind of strange for it to happen not long after you kind of bring them up. Now, let's go back to Mount Erebus. Now, everybody knows John Kerry's been to Antarctica. Okay. What a lot of people don't know is where he went. And, you know, I honestly don't remember where I got this information. So I can't verify the sauciness of it. But I was able to get John Kerry's Fitbit and heat map track for when he was down there, specifically his, okay, which is pretty big. Yeah, I got lots of stuff being typed in over here. Give me a minute to read these guys. Video games, yeah, I know Temple of the One. A lot of Asian video games have that. Temple of the One, David Wilcock talks about a book called Raw and the Rule of One, both pyramids. You know, I know somebody that has that book. I need to borrow that or buy one. I need to read up on that. There's a Rule of One, which is it's an ancient Egyptian thought process. It's something I'll have to dig into. And they do tell a lot of truth in fiction. I've been joking recently that we get more truth out of fiction than we do than fact. It seems like the fiction has got a lot more truth in it. You just got to know how to pull it out. Many believe that this is the location of the pit. I don't think the pit's at the Temple of the One, Lisa, and I'll tell you why. I think it was pretty obvious based on the description earlier that the pit's not at the Temple of the One. But anyway, now let's pop back to Mount Erebus, which is where I think the pit is. Then Secretary of State John Kerry made a trip down to Antarctica immediately after the 2016 election loss by Hillary Clinton. The day after, he was down there. Okay. When I say immediately, I mean now. Okay. So one of his stops was Mount Erebus, and I've actually gotten my hands on his Fitbit heat map track of the time he spent down there. Okay. Now, this down here is McMurdo Base. This is where the station is off this little extension. This is the path out to the runway. This is the path over to, I forget what was over here. And then this kind of runs up to a little kind of there's a loop, probably a sightseeing loop that goes up here. But unnoticed up here at the top is this little bit of red. So, yeah, I put the wrong date. It should be 2017. You're right. My bad. I had 2016 election in the head, so sorry. So, what's he doing up on the summit of Erebus? And it didn't just take him to the summit. He landed down here and then obviously trekked further in or up. In? Hard to say. But I don't see Kerry making the trekking up the side of a cone of a mountain at 16,000 feet. I mean, no, I'm sorry. I don't see that. It would have been in the middle of summer down there, so it would have been the best conditions to do it, but still, because it was November. But still, it doesn't add up. Kerry's not exactly the mountaineering type. He's not, in great health. This is a zoom in on McMurdo and all the different places he goes. And, we can see I've verified this path here. You can see the track in the snow and these paths out here. They all are legitimate paths. Nothing special there. And this is zoomed in a little bit closer. I think that is actually a general heat map of a lot of different areas or a lot of different passages. Some of this stuff is interesting because you can see some offshoots that look like they go to places that aren't on the maps. Anyway, so why in the hell, no pun intended, I think, would such a high-ranking U.S. government official head down that way at that time and then travel to the crater of Mount Erebus? Virgin sacrifice? I don't know. I'm not going to let this whole video play, but I'm going to play part of it. This is actually a very important video.
The last field camp we visited was at Mount Erebus.
Love this guy's
active
accent.
volcano is 12,500 feet high.
Oh, 12,000.
It is of particular importance as inside the crater, the magma of the inner Earth is directly exposed.
You can see how far down that is.
There are only two other such volcanoes in the world, one in the Congo and the other in Ethiopia. Because of political strife in those places, it is actually easier to conduct field studies here in Antarctica. First thing, we were instructed in the etiquette of dealing with this volcano.
One very important thing to keep in mind when you're on the crater is that the lava lake could explode at any time. And if it does, it's vital to keep your attention faced toward the lava lake and watch for bombs that are tracking up into the air and try to pick out the ones that might be coming toward you and step out of the way. It's the last thing you want to do is turn away from the crater or run or crouch down. Keep your attention toward the lava lake, look up, and move out of the way.
That's those Strombolian type explosions I was talking about.
So
look how far down that is.
The lava lake was not enshrouded in mist this day. This here is a new observation camera. William McIntosh is the leader of the team of volcanologists here.
This camera, designed for prison riots or to be explosion proof, and then it's coated with this thick Teflon housing. Here's the lens here. This is a camera. The camera inside is made by a small company in Canada, Extreme CCTV. The inside housing is specifically designed for explosion, to be explosion proof. Oh, there's a bang from the lava lake right now. No bombs though.
This is the magma lake filmed 30 years ago. At that time, there was a bold attempt to descend into the crater. Halfway down, there is a plateau. From there, it is a gaping hole straight down into the magma. They were in for near disaster. The magma exploded, striking one of the climbers who got away with minor injuries.
Lucky it didn't kill him.
Today, the lava is monitored by Dr. McIntosh's camera.
And yes, the yellow rock is sulfur. Yeah, the music is out there.
Along the slopes of the volcano, there are vents where steam creates so-called fumaroles, bizarre chimneys of ice, sometimes reaching 2 stories in height.
We talked about those earlier. That's why I'm showing this to you, because I want you guys to see this. It's 8-minute video. It's not too bad. So
it is possible to descend into some of them. You only have to be careful to avoid the ones containing toxic gases.
interesting music choice for this section, by the way. Okay. I don't normally wouldn't take the time to do that usually, but that whole video was it actually was very mood appropriate, I think. But the point I want to get across with that video is that they showed us that there's a way from the fumarole to the mountain, and there's no guarantee that there's not hundreds, if not dozens, if not hundreds more. And there's no guarantee that there's not some that lead directly to the interior of the mountain, somewhere along, say, into the core, to the crater. Because as you can see, there's that crater is quite deep, and they haven't been able to get down into the lower part of the crater at all. They tried and failed. So they're trying to emphasize that part of the crater is exceptionally dangerous. Well, what if that there's a way through the mountain into that throat area of the crater? Now, Mount Doom in Lord of the Rings is almost exactly that description. You've got a passageway through the side of the crater, through the side of the mountain, halfway up the mountain, and it goes right into the lava, or the forging area, as it were, where the rings were formed and forged. Now, let's take a quick look here. And this was written about, you got to remember the Lord of the Rings was written in the 40s, possibly 30s or the 20s, depending on what period of time that he'd actually formulated that part of the story. Now, the thing that everybody's got to remember is Tolkien was a Englishman, and he also was an English professor at Oxford. Okay. Where do you think that the world explorers hung out when they weren't exploring? They hung out at the universities. Is it possible that Tolkien got the idea for Mount Doom from, say, I don't know, let's go back up here a little ways. What was this name that was up here at the top? Sir James Clark Ross or Joseph Hooker? Possibly. He was a well-known, Tolkien was a well-known author and linguist. I mean, he hung out at there's no reason to think that he wouldn't have rubbed elbows with these guys and learned things. Okay. And what better way to tell the truth but through fiction? So, am I saying that we have Mount Doom? No. And K, no, the Andes in South America don't continue on through the Antarctic. It's very, very easily shown that they don't. I can show you right here. The Andes come down right through here. And if you scroll, you can see where there's a crustal break that runs all the way up here, up to these Sandwich Islands and around, and then begins this. It's part of the same line, but it's not a direct linkage between the two. The line actually runs all the way up over here and then back and around. It's actually a separate plate and everything. There is a split right there, and there's a couple others along here. I could get a tectonic map to show you, but it's an easy thing to think, but it's when you look at the Earth evidence, it's not there. So Tolkien did teach. He was a linguist, so he taught English and foreign languages and stuff like that. He created all the languages that he used in the Lord of the Rings books, all million of them. He created each one of them, other than English, obviously. But he was very, very, very gifted at that. So did Carrie go down there to rid themselves of the One Ring? Nah, of course not. What I do think he did do, and many other Cabal do and did before him, is consult with a being that is chained in the lake of fire in the bottomless pit at the bottom of the world. A stretch? Maybe. Satan, Beelzebub, Baal, Moloch, the devil, whatever you want to call it, it's real and he exists. He is the king of this world via God, because God has given him that provenance. It's his job until God comes back and reclaims it. He has made Lucifer God of the world. It's not saying that he's the ultimate will, but he is definitely a strong one. His will has been law, but he's been restrained, chained, and kept from exercising his full might. I do believe that whatever it is that's there is trapped, is not able to get out, is not able to utilize its abilities to full extent. That's why it has to act through intermediaries. But, through my whole study for 30 years, I've realized that there's got to be a non-human entity at the head of, Dominion, phraseology difference. There has got to be a supernatural or dimensional being that is leading the bad guys, as it were, the Cabal. And the reason for this is if you look at the length of time, we can trace the Cabal all the way back to Cain, 6,000 years. Okay. And there's no human agency. You can't get 10 freaking humans that are on the same side of something to agree on something, let alone 6,000 years of people to march in a straight line towards a single goal. You just can't. Humans don't have that ability. And we're seeing the overreaching and overarching ability of a being to push and direct and guide and head in one specific direction for a long, long period of time. So it can't be a human entity. It just can't. So what does that leave? Well, could it be demonic? Absolutely. Could it be angelic, fallen angel? Well, isn't that what a demon is? Could it be an Nephilim? Well, again, isn't that just another description of a fallen angel potentially? Is it interdimensional? Are we talking fourth or fifth or sixth dimensional beings here? Well, fifth potentially. And hunger in the human way? No. Hunger in other ways? Absolutely, as Muncie just illustrated. I believe they feed on fear and pain. That's, one of the things that they feed on. So, I mean, this is some pretty deep stuff here. It's not just, oh, hey, look, it's some pretty snow. No, it's a lot more than that. There's a lot more going on there. There's a lot deeper thing going on. And Lisa, I tend to agree with you. I'm not off the path. I think the part that'll put people in the hospitals when they find out how far religion has led them astray. That's going to be the part that's going to be the hardest for most people to understand and to take. They're going to find that spirituality is correct, and their relationship with God and Jesus is correct, but they're going to find that religion itself has been a red herring and has been a control mechanism. And that's going to be really, 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 really difficult for some people to take, because some people are locked into the hierarchy of the church and the religion. So, but anyway, let's continue with the thread, because I mean, this whole topic can be its own topic that would take up hours and hours and hours. So, but you kind of know where I'm going with it now. So we have an extremely powerful holy relic, the Arc of Gabriel, located at one end or the middle of this mountain chain. In the center of this chain, we have a pyramidal temple of the One that potentially sent Buzz Aldrin into a medically induced evacuation from the continent, stating, "We're all in danger, it is evil itself." Possibly a good place to have evil chained at the Temple of the One. I don't know if the evil's at the Temple of the One anymore. I'm going to stay with the Mount Erebus. It's possible the Temple of the One also is a positive. Because the One could easily refer to Christ as well, or God. And you don't get a much more perfect structure than a pyramid. And temples usually have a positive connotation versus negative. Shrine or something else like that is, another term that it would be utilized. So I don't know. I'm on the fence. Temple of One's placement, positive or negative. I honestly think that Temple of One is going to be the meeting point when everything goes down, when we have a confrontation between good and evil, the ultimate players. So anyway, then at the far end, we have Mount Erebus with all of its odd coinkydinks. Mountain chain also happens to look a lot like a snake, which by itself doesn't mean anything, but coupled with all this other stuff, put it all together, and I have to wonder what the hell is really going on down there. Oh, and Rothschild Island at the Arc of Gabriel end of the continent. Yes, it's real. Yes, it's named. And there it is right there. I happen to just have it up conveniently. Oh, it's not showing up real good in this path. Oh, they must have just put some new stuff in there. That makes it hard to see. Convenient. Oh, there we go. So they're not showing it very clearly anymore. They've just changed it so it doesn't show up very well. I've got it marked pretty close, but they've obviously removed the outline of it, just like in the past a little bit. Let me get rid of the grid. Maybe that'll bring it back. Here we go. There we go. Now I'm happy. There's Rothschild Island. Okay. And again, it's all cut up. What are they trying to hide? Well, we can zoom way in on it if we want to. But, there's people that say that there's a plan for cities and power plants and all this other stuff down here too. But, let's be realistic here. There ain't going to be no cities built down there right now. Not with conditions such as they are. So now there's another oddity that goes on down there in this neck of the woods. There's guided boat tours of cabal types down there who perform art and such on board these boats as they visit Antarctica. It's called the Antarctic Biennial. So let's go look at this real fast. Hi. I'm getting molested by a cat here, so bear with me. Basically, this is a, yeah. It brings together artists, thinkers, and research on a maritime expedition intended to foster a dialogue between participants speaking from their own disciplines, the Antarctic environment, and with life across the planet. Okay. Brainchild of Russian sailor, philosopher, and artist Alexander Ponomarev, defined as an experiment. Social cultural phenomenon, drawing on methodologies of multiple disciplines, arts, philosophy, and science, blah, 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 blah. So if we go and we find destinations, oops, they have changed the article. That's very interesting. Oh, it's in Russian. Translate to English, please. So that is no longer, they've scrubbed it since I was here last. That's funny. Okay, the ship crossed Drake Pass, entered in our polar circle, and after traveling to a few islands, returned to Cabo de Hornos. Okay, so they just say enter the Antarctic polar circle, and after traveling to a few islands. Well, I found out where they traveled, and it wasn't from this because they really didn't give really good description. Well, they traveled down here to the Rothera Research Station. So they came from Argentina, which is up here, and down and along to the Rothera Research Station. Okay. Now, keep in mind, these are cabal globalists, and you'll see what I mean in just a second. And they got within Rothera. They got within 150 miles of Rothschild Island. 170 miles. Okay. So if the ice is clear there, the ice is probably clear down here. All right. Now, why would I think that they would have gone to Rothschild Island? Well, let's look at the Board of Trustees for this biennial. Marina Abramovic, Vanessa Branson's sister. I don't know all of these, the Russian names or the French names, but those two kind of jump out at me. Okay. So that's very, very, very deep state. I mean, if those two are involved, you know it's hugely deep state. And the fact that it's some artist thing makes it even more so. Because that high art crap is just filled with esoteric and negative stuff. So we have a bunch of cabal members going down to within just 100 miles of the Rothschild Island. Interesting. Rest, this is just kind of some other stuff. It's not really relevant. But here's John Kerry getting off. There's a C-17. There's Tom Hanks down there. Prince Harry down at the South Pole. Some other pictures I didn't really put into the thread. There's the one of the fumaroles that's not quite so noticeable, but there it is. Another anon and put together a list showing where he went. Now, ironically enough, this is not McMurdo back here. That's Scott base. The green buildings are Scott base. McMurdo is not green. So that's the New Zealand base. And I don't remember what that marker's for. Huh. So don't ask me. I don't remember why I posted that one. Pretty picture. Here's some more pictures of Mount Erebus. Here's down the cone. There is the view of it and what they suspect the interior of the volcano looks like. Haha. And Ross is actually an island. This is actually everything around it's frozen. So we got Mount Erebus, Mount Terror, Mount Terra Nova, and Mount Bird, all 4 volcanoes right here. Shackleton's Hut's here. Scott Base is right here. McMurdo Station's here. So there it's all mounted on the island. All the rest of this is ice, believe it or not. Oh, yeah, good point, Chia Pet. I hadn't even thought about that. And then link back to my earlier digs. So that's that. There's a lot there. So what do you guys think? Oh, hey. And then now that I'm not sharing the screen anymore, I can do this. The book for the Arc. Oops, got to get that right in the view there. Lawrence Gardner. There we go. It's hard to move and mirror to yourself. That's a good book. A lot of interesting stuff in there. Discusses Oramus gold and monofilamatomic gold, and the potential that the arc was used to create that, which was actually mana, and that's why the electrical charge it was able to produce was actually useful, and such stuff like that. So good reading there. But yeah, the Satanists, I mean, it's just, they're everywhere. It's hard to get away from them. They're in the middle of everything. They do everything. We just have to be aware of it. Do I think that the Arc of Gabriel is put down there for a negative reason, potentially? Anything that Pope Francis is involved with, I'm suspicious of. Patriarch Kirill, I don't have any reason to really suspect him of anything. But on the flip side, I don't really have any reason to think that he's innocent either. But there's got to be some, innocent people in this world. Otherwise, we'll begin to suspect everybody. So, oh, you're going to want me to go on the Nazi Bell rabbit. No, I wasn't going to go there because I'm still working on that. That's a later deal. Does it? I already closed that. Hang on, let me get back here. Oh, you're right, it does. Holy shit, that's brilliant, Steve. Huh. Follow the white rabbit. Wow. That's, hang on, I gotta, yeah, it does look like a white rabbit, doesn't it? Huh. Here, I'm going to screen share again real fast. So everybody can see this. Okay. So you see this yellow outline here? That's effectively Ross Island. Okay. Ears, nose, front feet, body, tail, back. Man, that's thanks, Steve. That's one of those, that's why I love doing this stuff, because Patriots really, every once in a while they show you something and somebody sees it differently than you do, and it just opens up a whole world. Now, that does not open up a whole bunch of new possibilities for the Q drops. That's and right in the center of the white rabbit, right there, is the crater. So that's I'm gonna have to think on that one for a while. I'm gonna have to let that one stew in my brain and let it yeah. How come you didn't tell me about this, rabbit? That's supposed to be one of your boys. So So does that mean, okay, let's take a look. Yeah, if give me a minute and I'll find that one. I've got all that stuff here. I'll find the actual Ross Island picture. Yes, you guys are seeing into the mind of Dano here. Hopefully you're all wearing rubber gloves. Here it is right there. Yep, there's your rabbit. Wow. Steve, you just kind of blew that up. You just took it for something that, oh my God, to something that, holy shit. I appreciate that. And thank you very much. And this exactly is why I talk about people following smaller accounts, because it doesn't matter who it is. Somebody can come in out of the blue and see something that you don't see. They mention it and it changes the world. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, here, I can even get funky here and image free rotate. Let's see if we go, what is that, about 30 degrees? Close enough. Yeah, you can definitely see the rabbit if you were, imagine this, the ground now. Him kind of hunched with his feet down, ears, face, body. That's the island that is down in Antarctica. That McMurdo Station is right here. Mount Erebus is right here. Mount Terror is back here. Mount Terra Nova is there, and Mount Bird's there. But Mount Erebus is at the heart. The Temple of the One is that pyramid in the middle of the continent that has a lot of interesting things that happen around it. There's a lot of, David Icke type rumors about what goes on underneath. And I don't want to dive into that because I don't necessarily believe it. I mean, there's talk about, soldiers down there, and they use natives to, they take, homeless people and natives down there and make them dive around and, hang on, I'm going to tag that link because that's a link that's worth having. Sorry. Oh, I see. Yeah, I can easily lay that over what I've got. That's interesting. A lot of those protected areas are rookeries for penguins, probably. Huh, interesting. Here, I'll bring it over so everybody can see. But you've got Mount Erebus and stuff, Mount Erebus and stuff is right here. No, Mount Erebus is, right in here. And then you've got the South Pole, and you've got the Temple of the One here, and Trinity is up in here. So all these islands and stuff have got a lot of protected. Rothschild Island is right here. Gee, was surprise. So I'll be laying that over the map. It's much harder to lay over the Antarctic map because it's at the bottom of the globe, so it doesn't lay over like the US and stuff will. Let's save that in my Antarctic favorites. Oops. There we go. Too many things. So anyway, that's so the heart of the White Rabbit has the crater of the mountain, and that totally changes the meaning of things like the movie The Matrix. Follow the White Rabbit. No, okay, it's not part of the Sandwich Islands. Oh, you're talking about J. Edgar Hoover. Yeah, I don't know. Hoover had some definite issues. I would not necessarily rely on him as a source for anything. But anyway, so there's some awesome stuff there. I mean, that's going to lead me down some other, no pun intended, rabbit holes. I'm going to have to do some digging on that. That's some good stuff there. I appreciate that, Steve, very much. Any other questions here? Yeah, Hoover was the head of the FBI for a long time. He had files on everybody. He had blackmail files on everybody. He apparently he was a cross-dresser. He had all of his own idiosyncrasies. So what happened was he was so wound up about those that he wanted to document everybody else's so he didn't seem so strange. And he was just in a position of power, and he was just shouldn't have been there. I know that he's revered by many, but once you start digging on him, he gets pretty ugly. Ross Island is part of Antarctica, Elisa. It is very much doesn't belong to anybody. It is Antarctica. There's no military base there, but there on Ross Island is a New Zealand base and an American base. There is a plane crash on Erebus. If you look at there's a flight out of McMurdo back in the 70s. It was from New Zealand. Crashed right smack dab into the mountain. Killed 279 people all on board. They're still all on the mountain too, because they can't go get them. But the wreck is still there. But yeah, there is a crash on the mountain. I haven't actually identified the location. I should probably look for it at some point and tag it. But yeah, it's that I had a New Zealand guy that was going to look at that. He was a pilot who was actually going to dig into that, and he was supposed to write a big thread about that, and he got sidetracked, and I don't know that he ever did. But he pretty much came to the conclusion that it was a sacrificial deal. We know that they perform sacrifices, and what better way to sacrifice than to their guy that's right there. And the Busigi Mountains in Romania, Busigi. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Mountains in Romania obviously lead me to a whole nother issue, which would be vampires.
And reach.
Oh, okay, that one. Yeah, I've seen about that. I'm not sure I buy that 100%. But yes, the claims for what's underneath the pyramid of the temple of the one, is very similar to what they've found there at Busigi. And yes, the plane crash itself was a sacrifice. I mean, they crashed it right into Mount Erebus. So, I mean, what do you think? All right. Well, we've got ourselves a 3-hour movie going here. I think we're probably at the point where we should probably wrap it up, unless anybody else has some specific questions for me that I can answer, which I'd be more than happy to do. There's a delay between when I say it and when you guys hear it and when the feed pops up, so it'll take a second here. You go riot on your own, Muncie. That's a one-man riot. You have fun with that. Oh, I agree with him, Elisa. The sarcophagus is not a sarcophagus. It is something else. Some people claim it's a healing chamber. Some people claim it's an energy storage device. Lots of things. Ooh, Space Force. Maybe. Let me do some digging on that. I've got some questions I want to get answered before I dive into that. And I want to have some more sauce. I don't like presenting that one without a little bit more evidence. And Mike, what do you mean when you're talking about they? Who is they? Lisa, of all the things that I hope is true, the med bed's one of them. I might go live in it for a week or two just to get better. body's falling apart, so I could really utilize that. I agree with that, Elisa. I believe it's exactly what they used to do. There is a lot of evidence that they believed that they could transfer their soul from one body to another. And that's how they became a living God, is that they were able to live on to the next body. How did they know about the pyramids in the one, Mike? Well, you got to remember that the Cabal has access to all the records that we don't. Think of the Vatican archives and what's hidden there, and all the other things that are, if you think that the Library of Alexandria was gone, it's not. It's hidden. It's buried. It's there. So we need to be aware of that and understand that they have access to much greater histories and truths than we at this point have. So knowing that, they undoubtedly have a documentation of what's down there, and can utilize it. I'm not going to speculate on activities under the ice shelf. There's no point to doing so. It's speculation 100%. There is no proof that will be able to be given. There is nothing that we can do other than speculate. And I kind of like to stay away from that because, well, we can't prove it. Yeah, Lisa, I think if you look at like Harry Potter and the Horcrux thing and stuff like that, I think that you're looking at a very real potential power and path to creating, mirrors of your soul that can pass on. What is under the Temple of One, in my humble opinion? I think that there is a temple there, and I think that there is either it's going to be the meeting place between good and evil, and that's where it's going to be resolved, or there is something already there that we're not aware of, that we don't have the documentation for, that we don't know about yet, and we will learn that. No, I don't think Trump's been there. I haven't seen any of the good guys go there, and that kind of makes me scratch my head. I've only seen bad guys go there. So that tells me that whatever's going on there is not part of the good guys, it's part of the bad guys. And it seems to be their ultimate fallback plan. So, let's see here. You're welcome, Kay. I do it mainly this stuff I dig on because it fascinates me, and I want to know the truth of it. I don't want to know this superstition. Thanks for hanging in, James. I appreciate you being here. Tesla in Antarctica, I have no idea. Would be speculation if I one way or the other. Pyramids around the world, I believe, are all connected in one way, shape, or form. There's no coincidence that there's pyramids on every continent other than Australia. And they all appeared at about the same time in history. Meaning we don't know for sure when, in most cases. So there's some really ancient ones that are buried, in Europe and in other places. What if a mortal servant of the enemy fails? They have to travel and account for themselves? Possibly. They may have to go throw themselves on the mercy of the court, such as it is. Is there one in Australia? I've been looking for one and I couldn't find it. Oh, I'm in Seattle. I won't see anything. It'll be raining. It'll be overcast and raining. I would love to because I enjoy that kind of thing. But and I can actually see it. I just go out on the golf course and stand on the green right out here, and I got a great view right towards where it's going to be. So, well, price I pay. And thank you. I'll have to look. I'll have to ask my Australian followers if there's if they know of a pyramid down there. Because if there's a legit pyramid down there, it's ancient, not just some modern artistic interpretation. That'd be very interesting. Yeah, Ayers Rock has got some funkiness around it. I know that that's considered a holy place by the Aborigines, and the Aussies kind of guard it fairly. Chuz, as far as I know, Tesla does not have history anywhere other than the United States and Europe. If there's speculation, that's exactly what it is. Elisa, you'll be able to see it with the naked eye. It'll be very apparent. As long as you have a clean line of sight and no trees and stuff in the way. It won't be, probably be 20, 25, 30 degrees off the horizon. So it won't be that high up. You won't have to break your neck looking straight up. It'll be out, on the plane of the ecliptic. So. Yeah, there you go. Stellarium.com. That's probably a good place to go backwards in time, say 3,500 years, and look at the alignment of Orion's belt and see that it doesn't match the Giza pyramids at all. There's actually some speculation that the pyramids were actually built for something in Leo, which is why we've always associated the Sphinx is another deep subject, and I can touch on it real fast, but the Sphinx is not a lion body. It's actually a dog body. It was originally an Anubis, and the Anubis is the guardian of the underworld. And that's why there's a path that goes from the Sphinx into one of the great pyramids. And there's a death rite that involves that. And part of that death rite is part of what we were just discussing about the pharaohs transferring their souls. And Anubis is the guardian of the underworld. So that would make sense to be an Anubis, not a Sphinx, which there's very few Sphinx in Egyptian culture. So, but it also makes the Sphinx much older than we think it is. The Sphinx is probably 20 to 30,000 years old. It's not 10,000 years old. So thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. And yes, Moritz, the Aborigines have a very ancient history, and they actually have cave drawings down there too of astronauts and all sorts of strange stuff. There's all sorts of yeah, Anubis and Erebus, one and the same. Good call. It's right there. And see, that's twice tonight that somebody came up with something that I hadn't seen right there. Perfect. Thank you. I would not assume that the pyramids in Egypt are that much older, Elisa. If you look at the pyramids that are in Europe, they're completely buried by dirt. They're there. We know they're there, but they're buried by dirt. How many thousands and thousands of years would that take? So I believe that most of the true pyramids are actually of about the same age frame. Not a problem, Chia. This was a big show no matter what. Antarctica is just full of stuff, and it leads off into so many different directions. We're talking pyramids and Anubis and solar alignments and star alignments. We're going all over the map with it. So it just has so many potential places to go. Tesla's been involved, the Bible, Arc of the Covenant, Arc of Gabriel, every religion. Take your pick. We're going there. But yes, Elisa, no, 5,000 years is not even close to being accurate. I honestly believe that what we know as the Egyptian culture is much, much older than we think it is. And it in itself drew from much older cultures, aka Babylonian and stuff like that. And, we're learning about that as we go. Yeah, the flood was at the Younger Dryas impacts when Atlantis got buried. And I might do that my next show. I might actually do my Atlantis bit next show just to kind of keep up with the demand. I had done both Antarctica and Atlantis for Quiet Voice, and their channel got nuked, so we lost those videos. So I wouldn't mind doing them here on my own. Thanks, Corey. Welcome. So, all right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up tonight. I'm getting kind of tired. I need to go get some food in me. Fat boy, got to feed the beast. So I appreciate you guys being here. It's been a good long show. We covered a whole lot of ground. This one should probably live in posterity well. So thank you for the good observations in chat. Some awesome. You guys make sure that you follow, subscribe, do whatever, pay attention, and we'll go from there. Muncie, if you happen to record those, let me know. I'd really like to get those from you. I am already archiving my own stuff offline. So I've archived. I was just getting to the point of archiving their stuff, the ones I was in, and found out that it had been nuked. So I mean, I was late by about 2 days. And Tartaria, yes, Elisa, that ties in with Khazaria and is a whole nother discussion and topic that we will do at some point in the near future as well. So I've got a lot of big things to do, a lot of big topics to go. So thank you for seeing Rodania. We're pretty much done here. I appreciate you being here. Good night, Lisa. Good night, everybody. And have yourselves a good night.